Prologue. The water region knew little of the prince. Nahari had always been a quiet child absorbed in his studies of the occult and magical techniques. Rumor held he was an alchemist trained by the Citadel of Magic by age 10. In Ekru, Nahari had 5 siblings, where he sat as the second oldest to a domineering older brother, seething for the father's throne. Their youngest sister, Miri, dabbled into Nahari's studies, while sticking close to their eldest brother, Jin. 2 younger siblings were barely entering their preteens, with little interest in the throne. The water region of Maya was in a frenzy preparing for the Prince of Ekru, Nahari Samara. The serfs worked around the clock without rest, preparing the gardens and bedchambers. The kitchen was preparing a royal feast for the prince's entourage. Despite the word of the prince's arrival, the scouts have seen no caravan for miles. Only a man dressed in rags crossing the desert, connecting Ekru, Naka, and Maya at their very hips. 2 servants were working particularly hard, scrubbing the floors of the bed quarters the prince would be living in during his stay, and listening to Demeter raving over the young prince in privacy. When the Ekru Empire sent word of one of the king's sons was coming to Maya for a month to a year, Princess Demeter was instantly in love. Demeter's servants, Madison and Katara, followed her movement. They ensured the room was spotless, doing Demeter shopping and cleaning Demeter every other day to ensure she would be clean when the man she planned to make her husband arrived. Nahari and Jin were war heroes, with their names echoing worldwide. Jin took to being bold and open about his aims while Nahari let him speak, often traveling to keep far from any atrocity his brother might attempt on him. Nahari adopted the name Black Sheep due to being seen as distant and disconnected from the governing of the empire. Few knew of his father's letters about asking for Nahari's wisdom and insights about governance, grooming his son for leadership even at a distance. The only man to ever know where Nahari traveled was his father, Emperor Onyx Sarah. Nahari was on a mission for his father, a task only a man with Nahari's disciplined mind and cunning could accomplish. The alliance between Ekru and Maya had grown strained in the creation of the Ekru Empire. The Mayans helplessly migrated from the mainland to survive by Onyx's father's Formica. The Mayans were left to recreate their entire society as an island-based mercantile navy to prepare for the next war. Instead, the world grew silent for decades, and the army they so desperately feared had never arrived. Onyx has grown old and gray, awaiting a peace treaty with Naka and Maya after his father's atrocities against God and man. A life absorbed into rebuilding a world destroyed by his blood and people. He hoped his children would learn more about the world and take over his works, though few seemed interested in leading due to the good times he and his father created for them. Nahari was a child who never asked for more than his due and cried very little. His piercing yellow eyes would study whoever was upsetting him until they fell faint or grew fearful of the hallucinations emerging in the room around them. Jin fought his way, and Nahari had his form of combat. Princess Demeter grew up in the Royal Navy Academy, attending boot camp early in the mornings and classes throughout the day. In the afternoon, she was in sports. Before the children left, they did their chores in the evenings before returning home or to their dormitories. The nights were their own, and after a hard day of working, Demeter used her influence and wealth to host the craziest underground parties or boat parties far beyond the Academy's jurisdictions. Her life was focused entirely on honoring her father and strengthening Maya. The alliance with the Empire was her passion project. Though her father was wary, King Onyx had no interest in allegiance. The High Priestess of Water and Guardian Bath planned a wedding for the two in hopes Nahari would be interested in their beautiful daughter. Chapter 1. Your Royal Highness, a man is at the gates. He threatens to swim across the moat if we don't lower the bridge. He pledged to murder all our guards. He claims to be the prince. Hugh and the chief guard found Demeter with her 2 handmaidens before either of her parents. Why wasn't the gate lowered? How many guards has he killed already? Demeter asked, holding her grandma's brooch close to her chest. It is not Prince Jin. Well, what prince is it? Demeter asked, confused, having never known of another Samara who called himself a prince. He calls himself Prince Nahari of the Ekru Empire, but is dressed as a common peasant begging for crumbs. Surely the great empire hasn't fallen so low under new rule. Houghton scoffed with pride. Nahari. We learned about the wolf Nahari from the gore of the past decades. A monster on the battlefield. Is he the prince? I thought the wolf of Ekru was a myth, used to scare children. Demeter bit her thumb, feeling her excitement growing. No wonder Huey is so scared, Katara mocked, skilling to her compatriot in torment, Madison. Shh, you're gonna get me in trouble. Madison held her finger to her lips, straightening up. Katara was the youngest in the room. Madison took up employment at the castle in her early 30s to send the coins she earned back to her elderly parents and siblings. Katara had been the guard's favorite plaything when she wasn't cleaning. However, Katara had been far more trouble than she was worth, often lying of different ailments or pregnancies, hoping to catch one in the unholy predicament, as the guards put it. Katara was surprised she protected her maidenhood for so long, often sufficing by her wits and quick humor. With the talk of the young prince, Katara's ears were wide open, listening to Demeter's fawning and cooing. It would be hard for her and Madison to get close to the prince, but they were curious. Demeter clapped her hands, hurrying the girls from scrubbing upon their knees to get up and greet their guest. Madison grunted as she stood and then helped up Katara. Madison rubbed her legs, needing to recover from the hard labor before following. Demeter arrived. All the guards stood up at attention, looking high at the sky, saluting their comrade in arms and their princess. Demeter signaled for the gate to lower without a word, standing her ground as the energy storm grew closer and closer. The ragged man approached with a scolding scowl, furious about how the guards treated him. The man raised his hand, sending the storm in multiple different directions, creating dark clouds over the heads of the guards who mocked him from afar. Please desist, Demeter shouts between a bark and a plea. Don't worry, my dear. I didn't kill your puppies as my impulse told me to do. Instead, I gave them a share of my pain. A dark rain cloud for each of them. When I feel agitated, the cloud will naturally disperse. Until then, I suggest you keep them outside, or else they may flood your castle. Nahari lifted his hood, revealing a handsome young man with golden eyes, dark chocolate skin, a strong chin, and high cheekbones. Demeter smiled, wrapping her arms around his neck. You are far better looking than your brother. Thank you, I hear it often. Nahari takes her hand, spinning Demeter around and dipping her, staring into her crystalline blue eyes. Demeter giggled as he lifted her once more, twirling her loose as she danced in, wrapping her arms around his neck again. Are you real? Demeter asked. I hear that often as well. Nahari chuckled, rubbing Demeter's chin. So you're the prince. Some poor guy in rags? I thought Ekru was loaded, Katara spoke out of turn. Watch your tongue, knave, Houghton barked, popping Katara upside the head with his metal glove. Nahari's eyes lashed out a deep red color for a moment, confronting Houghton quicker than a person could blink. Nahari held himself back for a moment, taking deep breath as he straightened out Houghton's arm and cape, slapping the taller man on the cheek before revealing a weak spot at his neck with a hidden wrist blade only Katara seemed to notice. Houghton was too tall and confident to realize his life was at risk. Katara moved away slowly. Are you alright? Nahari asked Katara. No, I think Houghton gave me a concussion, Katara blurted out. Nahari sighed, pulling away from Houghton at the absurdity of her statement. Houghton chuckled, feeling his neck pricked enough to bleed, but he hadn't seen it when Nahari made a move. Nor did anyone as they rushed to Houghton's aid. Nahari had wandered further into the castle, far from the commotion as Houghton began coughing blood, complaining about being unable to breathe. Katara had snuck behind Nahari, watching her new hero explore the castle from a distance like a cat stalking a mouse. Katara found herself nearing a dead end, wondering where the prince had gone. A hand covered her mouth from the darkness around the corner. Who are you? Nahari asked. Katara pretended to speak in muffled murmurs until he released his grip. She bit his hand as he stopped cupping her mouth to pretend the exact thing. Katara attempted to run, but he held a firm grip, refusing to let her loose. He pressed her against the wall and she moaned how strong he had been effortlessly moving her body. Are you gonna have your turn? Katara asked, pushing at her hips and lifting her tunic, revealing her hairy vagina lips. Datari chuckled, releasing her entirely, moving away with his hands raised in the air. What? Are you scared of pussy? Katara accused. I've never needed to force a woman into sex. I'm not gonna start with you. Now I asked, who are you? I answered your question. Now answer mine. Dahari enforced. They call me Katara, but my parents used to call me dumbass, so I prefer Katara. I've been working in the castle since I grew some titties and an ass. Her fresh mouth made him chuckle. How many cycles are you now? He asked, his accent enthralling her as she dreamed of his homeland. A cycle? Do you mean a year? Holy horse crap, are you from the past? Where are you from, the past? I'm 19, do you want your turn or not? The guards like to bring me to places like this to play with my body, Katara offered, guiding his hands around her breast for once desiring a man's touch. The guards do what? Do you let them do whatever they wish to you? And Hari snatched back his hand, feeling further enraged with the guards. Do you think I have a fucking choice? What the hell do you think? I volunteer to be their plaything? No, I get out of it however I can. This moment, right now, I'm choosing you. Katara dropped her tunica, feeling his silken clothes against her skin. And perhaps I will take my turn. Nahari rubbed her shoulders, gently running his hands across her supple breast. Katara moaned to his gentle touch, used to the rough fondling and shoving the guards went through. Alone with Nahari, she felt at peace and safe. Katara invited him to suckle her nipples, enjoying his gentle touch as he sat on the floor. She climbed on his lap, holding her breast for him as she had never done for any man before him. Katara's moans grew louder as his fingers encircled her clitoris. Katara cursed, never realizing she could ever enjoy a man's touch. As he tried to penetrate her, he stopped himself, learning from how tightly her vagina squeezed his fingers. Katara told the truth to keep herself from the guards. He judged the young woman could be trusted, and relented in going any further. What's wrong? Katara purred, nuzzling against his neck. You're a bit young for me. He let out a sigh, patting her on the head. I assure you it doesn't matter. Would you like to see your bedchambers? Katara offered hospitably. Nahari rubbed his chin, nodding as he began to understand the young girl's plans for him. Nahari took some offense to be seen as a meal ticket. Still, he understood few options for a servant to escape castle life without a sponsor or a paramour. Katara, where are you? I hear you screaming. Is he hurting you? Madison asked in a panic. Nahari helped Katara to her feet, then hopped up to his feet. Nahari adjusted his pants as Katara readjusted her tunica, and Madison found them speaking suspiciously amongst themselves. How did you two end up here? Huon's men rushed into the medical pavilion. They claim he had a heart attack, Madison informed them. Shame. He seemed like such a nice chap. Nahari rolled his eyes, indifferent to whether the man lived or died. I hope he's okay. Do you know a way to his quarters from here? Katara asked, clinging to her tunic as it began falling. What is going on here? Madison asked. I am attending the prince. Can you please take us to his bedchamber so I can perform my duties? Katara was trying to speak in code. You're going to get us in trouble, Madison whined. It's fine, ladies. I believe I'll explore these halls a bit longer before I head to my chambers. I would hate for either of you to lose your jobs before I can sample some of Maya's finest delicacies. His words hung as he squeezed Katara's butt under her tunica. Katara held his chin, kissing him deeply, wanting him to take her where they stood, but the pain she heard of losing her virginity terrified her more than Demeter's punishment. As Nahari turned to Madison, she felt his charm but turned away. His hands held Madison's wide hips, moving behind her as she yelped as he squeezed her butt. Madison watched, paralyzed by awe, as he massaged and kneaded her ample butt. Sooner than she realized, he was gone. I think he likes you more than me, Katara pouted. What? Katara was blushing so profoundly at what had happened with little idea how to react. He held you longer than me, Katara whined out of jealousy. It was only a moment. Besides, Demeter would kill us, actually kill us, if she found out about this. So please, leave me out of it. Madison pleads. I didn't tell him to touch you, and you didn't tell him to stop, Katara pointed out. I didn't know what to say. Neither did I. I just liked how it made me feel. It feels like my vagina is on fire, Katara whined, crossing her legs at the yearning. I know what you mean. Madison took a deep breath, trying to regain her composure. Chapter 2. Only the chosen few with the genetics passed down or the aptitude to use the ether. Nahari's father was a grand master in ether bending, but the knowledge was impossible to pass down unless one already had their connection to the ether. You can place fire in your child's hands and teach them how to farm or swim, but you cannot take a weak soul into the ether without bringing them death. His father studied in each region, leaving his journals and notes inside different books and libraries. Jin was not much of a reader, but Nahari spent the past decade retracing his father's steps, trying to see the world and not his ego. Nahari perused the castle's library for their knowledge of the ether. Nahari found a grimoire entitled Ether Bending and Self-Sacrifice, the Consecration of the Black Flame, an instruction manual on different spell techniques for an ether user. Nahari smiled warmly, holding the book to his chest and feeling his father's energy. Excuse me, sir, but foreigners are not allowed to check out books from the royal library. Nahari turned his head, unable to see who was speaking to him until he saw a woman at eye level with his navel. He rubbed his neck, clinging tightly to the tome. Nahari discreetly kneeled, meeting the woman with long curly hair. Her brown eyes studied him from behind a pair of wide-framed glasses. Nahari noted her darkened complexion, wondering where he had seen this woman before now. Are you by any chance a member of the Journey family? Nahari asked, gesturing for her to follow him as he sat at a nearby table. She held the necklace with her family crest, wondering how he recognized it. The Journey family was a lesser house under the Samaras. Her father often complained for Micah never recognized them for their sacrifices made to his war. When Emperor Onyx took the throne, her father sent his children away to war at the foreign kingdoms, hoping to return, bringing the family honor and wealth. She bit her tongue, taking a deep breath as she shuffled her feet behind him. Would you like to sit? Nahari offered. No, I'm all right. How do you know my family name? I'm Prince Nahari. Your father gave a great deal to build our people's empire. Our people's? You mean your families? The village did not build itself. One man or one family makes the village. And unless the village can acknowledge all its members, the village will fall to ruin. Nahari recited his family's motto. I am far from the village and want nothing to do with what you're planning, Nahari. She looked over the book, tracing it with her fingers, but daring not to open it. Can you use the ether? She gasped, feeling her breath quicken as she nodded slowly, hoping no one saw. Nahari held her hand, opening the pages for her, tearing to a spell that she could likely master even as a novice. She read quickly, looking at him, biting her lip, keeping her thoughts in her head as she turned the next page. What might your name be? Nahari asked. My name is Catherine. Catherine Journey. Do you spend much time in the library? Catherine smiled, blushing as she turned away from him. I can check this book out for you, if you can teach me. I thought you already knew. I'm not allowed. The Mayans fear the ether. I'm only allowed to practice under the High Priestess's tutelage. However, she admits knowing little of the ether herself. She taught me how to control and suppress my power. But neither knew the full extent until now. It appears as the ether is all four elements in one. Ether is the base matter of all life in its highest form. I know it sounds paradoxical. Catherine, imagine for a second having a filet mignon and turning it into a stew. You can spend too much time convincing Fly honey tastes better than horse crap. Ari lifted her chin. Catherine grabbed his hand and studied the golden rings around his wrist and the wrist blade. You're an assassin. I got these from an assassin, but I am merely a student of life. I'm not here necessarily for war, but rather to prevent one. My father fears your region is soon to fall into civil war. You're here to stop it? If they wish to broker peace, it will surely be my first resort. If not, I am in to report who poses the real threat. Since you are Vekru, do you have a vested interest? Well, the princess is my best friend, so I believe you should support her side. Her side requires marriage, Nahari groaned. What is wrong with marriage? How could I ever taste your fruits if I wed your friend? I would never know the taste of your juices or your breast. I could never feel you or know the sounds of your shy moans. If I'm to give in to her commands, my dear, your body was made for my pleasure. Catherine rolled her eyes, snatching back her hand as she prepared to leave. You will not be doing any of those things with me. Nahari shrugged, holding the book in his hands. You still can't check out that book. Catherine fumed, stomping her foot, growing frustrated with him. Then I suppose I shouldn't leave the library until I finish reading. Nahari doesn't bother looking up from the page. Catherine bites her lips. Are you staying in the castle? I am trying to read, Nahari whispers, holding his finger to his lips. Catherine held her chest, wishing she had worn something less revealing. So few people came in the library. She often arrived in the morning in her morning wear, feeling no one would see her until the feast. She kept her head down low and her ear to the ground. No man had ever sexualized her before. It made her feel attractive. Catherine never felt aware of her voluptuous frame or how a man like Nahari would crave her curves. She was always made to feel heavy and in the way. The library was the only place she could disappear. Now she felt naked before him. Does your father wish you to marry Demeter? Catherine asked, sitting down next to him. Nahari sighed. My father knows no woman will shackle me to her family's whims. Suppose Demeter were to come to Ekru and be a proper Ekran lady, then so be it. I doubt she would leave and expects me to live here as some pet. His words struck a chord in Catherine's heart, constantly feeling overwhelmed by Demeter's military persona. In a way, Catherine found the idea of Demeter's marriage a bit humorous, considering she had never seen Demeter wear a dress. Regardless, Demeter was excited and thrilled about the arrangement, but Nahari seemed more interested in her breast and hips. Catherine thought she would feel uncomfortable, but giggled, turning her head so he couldn't see her smile as he undressed her with his eyes. You understand my point now, he asks. I simply want to learn more about how to use our people. I simply want to learn more about our people and my powers, Catherine stated. I can't promise I'll keep my cock out of you, Nahari admits. Catherine was caught off guard by his bluntness covering her mouth. She gulped, her mind blanking on a response. Here? Was all Catherine could ask, damning herself from saying anything in her head, and immediately shivering. I was expecting you to slap me in the face, Nahari chuckled, rubbing her cheek. I think we want the same things. Catherine's heart raced, reaching between his legs and rubbing his crotch, feeling him growing in her hands and nodding in approval. Do you like what you feel? Nahari laughed, putting himself away, blushing in embarrassment. Well, you're staring at my breasts, so it only felt fair if I touch you as well. Will you teach me? Why are you asking me about marriage? Well, I am close with the High Priestess. I would say a bit closer to Queen Teresa than her daughter. I felt if you wanted to support the royal family, then marrying me would be as good. You seem more attracted to me. I fear the curse of the men in my family, or we fall in love with whatever woman is in front of us. Nahari let out a rueful sigh. Catherine sighed, feeling silly for thinking he would consider such a thing. What's wrong? Nahari wrapped his arms around Catherine. You're just as cocky as all the other men around here. Catherine didn't rush him away, enjoying how his muscles felt against her soft flesh. I'm not cocky. I know my worth. I can become king by marrying any woman I wish, even as a princess. Your friend must marry a prince to become queen. I have the power, Nahari shrugs. Catherine mulled over his words. The thought of being queen of an empire excited her to no end. The power of the book presented. She would never have to hide again. She was familiar with absolute confidence over her seeing bravado, machismo, and idiots. Nahari was assured of himself no matter what he wore or what others thought of him. Catherine never imagined such a life possible. I want to check out this book and see you again, Catherine confirmed aloud. I'm honestly not leaving the library until I finish reading. Here seems like the lowest traffic area in the castle. I'll likely hang out here. If you have any questions, come find me. Here. You're dismissing me? I thought you wanted to taste my fruits and be inside me, Catherine whispered, feeling the need like never before in her life. I fear I would kill you if I did such a thing. I didn't realize your conflict of interest. I will be here if you need instruction, but I don't want to compromise your personal life, Nahari frowned. Catherine smiled, sighing with relief. So we do want the same thing. Nahari gave a curt nod, showing he understood. I must begin my reading. I fear I came alone and didn't realize how militaristic Maya had become. I'll leave you to it. I live in the castle if you wanted company or to talk in my chambers tonight, Catherine offered. I greatly appreciate it, but I do not sleep much. I'll be here studying for quite some time. Do not wait on me. Nahari smiled brightly, then turned his attention back to his book. Catherine left him to his reading, moving along with her day, rushing back to her bedchambers to get dressed for the day. On her way to her room, she noticed two maids bickering as they carried vases of wine. Both women had to be well built to carry such heavy jugs of wine. She recognized the two maids, but had never cared enough to remember their names. Chapter 3. Demeter came rushing up the hallway, hyperventilating. She shrieked when she saw her three closest helpers, falling over in a faint. Katara pursed her lips, holding back her thoughts as she saw Demeter blinking to see if anyone would assist her. Katara was waiting for one of the others to take the opportunity for their Royal Highness's favor, tired of the games. Madison backed up, not wanting to get caught holding her unconscious body, having seen servants severely punished for such crimes. Catherine wanted to help in her heart, but seeing her friend faint, she ran to the library, as he said he would be. Nahari sat where they had left each other, reading the book, reading to himself aloud under his breath until he saw Catherine flustered. She grabbed his arm, snatching the book, and he followed her without question. Nahari saw Demeter fainted with two servants from earlier fanning her. Giving her a cup of wine to sip, Nahari smacked his face before taking the mug of wine, believing it to do more harm than good in her condition. I'm so embarrassed. I wanted your visit to be perfect, and everything has gone wrong. Demeter nearly threw herself into his arms, wrapping her arms around his neck and kissed his face. Nothing in life is perfect, my princess, Nahari elucidated, carrying her in vain as he had no idea where he was going. I'll take you, my king, Katara offered. Demeter's lips curled as she hissed, No, not you. My father is the king here. You would have watched me die. She sneered and snickered at me as I lay dying on the ground. Madison, you come with us. Katara, go clean his chamber pot. Katara ground her teeth, wanting to wring Demeter's neck but rushed off, calculating how she might get revenge. Nahara looked away, feeling embarrassed for Katara. Madison shyly joined Nahari's side, reveling in their secrets as she led the way to Demeter's quarters. Catherine had long left her living quarters, clutching the grimoire left for her living quarters, clutching the grimoire, locking her door and trying her best to simulate how Nahari read in the library, hoping she would be able to finish the grimoire before anyone came to find her. In Demeter's bedroom, Madison fanned her until her arm went tired. Nahari sat nearby as Demeter clutched his hand, squeezing it tightly whenever he attempted to leave. "I wish to be alone with my betrothed," Demeter gently requested. Madison sighed. Figuring it was inevitable, the princess got her prince. Her eyes met Nahari's as she left, sending chills down her spine. Madison bit her lip, feeling Katara would kill her if she hadn't stood up. To Demeter. "Do you need anything before I go, my prince?" Madison asked, heading to the door out of earshot, forcing him to follow. Nahari chuckled, holding back what he wanted to say out of respect for Demeter. In truth, he was starving and did need the assistance only a servant could provide. Nahari kissed Demeter's hand, leaving for only a moment to join Madison in the hallway. "It was very wrong what she did to Katara. Katara did help her," Madison whispers, wanting him to agree. "I didn't see what happened, and I don't want to get in the middle of their feud. I could use your help. I haven't eaten since I left that crew. I need to eat before I pass out," Nahari nodded. Madison's head filled with questions, but looking him over, it all made sense. She didn't care. She kissed him, realizing he likely hadn't been with a woman for nearly a month either. He bent Madison over and covered her mouth. Madison closed her eyes, accepting whatever came next. "Now please hurry up. I'm starving." He patted her on the butt and Madison hurried off, giggling to the kitchens. Nahari sighed, his suspicions correct as he found Demeter out of bed, listening intently by the door. Demeter cut her eyes at him, noticing the bulge in his pants. She rolled her eyes and got on her knees, pulling out his cock. Demeter began bobbing her head, taking a moment to admire his girth, sucking on the head of his cock before moving her head back down again. Nahari felt surprised by her short military haircut and slim frame to have such a sexual hunger. He laid on his back, wondering how alike they were at heart. Chapter 4. Demeter rolled onto her stomach, pointing to her bodice. Nahari looked at the intricate ties and wrappings, drawing his blade and slicing her dress. Demeter gasped as he tore her dress from her body without touching her flesh. She moaned as he held her down with one hand as she tried to move. Demeter shook loose from his grip, tackling him to the bed and pulling his dirty robes from his body until Nahari was naked. She rubbed his stubbled beard in need of a shave, but ignored it, kissing him as he penetrated her. Demeter cooed in his ear, adjusting her hips to let him in deeper. Nahari held her waist, slamming into her guts, using her body for momentum. Demeter buried her face into the pillow, throwing her hips back as her taut butt slapped against his pelvis. Nahari moaned as she gave little to no resistance, like a firm-fitted glove. He pulled out of her for a moment, unable to believe how quickly she got what she wanted from him. Nahari chuckled, taking a moment to regain his composure as Demeter awaited him on her bed. "So if we get married, you are coming with me back to Akru," he stated. Demeter groaned at his question. "Are you kidding me? You want to talk about that now at all times?" "Yes, as I'm having sex with you. A few strokes away from a baby. You're aware of where children come from, correct?" Demeter rolled her eyes. "I don't want to leave Maya." "Then what are we doing?" Nahari sighed as he pulled out of Demeter, sitting with his back against the headboard. But I will go for the duty of a queen." Demeter climbed on top of him, lowering herself and his still erect manhood, biting her lips as she reached her climax. "Will you submit to my leadership?" "Show me how you want me to submit," Demeter yawned dreamily, curling up in a ball in her blankets, feeling exhausted. "Are you about to take a nap?" Nahari rubbed his neck. "Take it as a compliment," Demeter blew a kiss. Nahari kissed her on the lips. He let her sleep stretch out, feeling his body adrift on the goose-feathered pillows and mattress. His last week of travel plagued him with severe sleep deprivation. He dreamed Madison was sucking his dick, watching the realistic display as Madison made his entire dick disappear down her throat and reappear before his eyes. He soon realized he hadn't been dreaming as Madison lifted her rough spun dress, revealing her smooth-shaven and far thicker and older frame than Demeter or Katara. Demeter snored as he rammed deep into Addison's apple bottom until he felt himself coming. She caught her breath, wondering what came over her, thinking of how proud Katara would have been for her for taking such a bold move in Demeter's bed right next to her. Then Madison pointed to his food on the nightstand near the bed as he filled her with his seed. Madison picked herself up, rushing out of the bedroom as quickly as her legs could carry her back to find Katara. Nahari's legs felt wobbly. He chuckled, feeling much better after his release, hoping he pulled out in time. Demeter rolled over to lay on his chest, wearing a smirk on her face as she stroked his cock. "I wasn't enough for you?" Demeter asked with a smirk. "You are awake?" he asked in shock. Demeter blushed. "I didn't want to interrupt. You seem to be enjoying yourself. Why weren't you that rough with me?" "Well, she wanted to be mine. Well, I feel you belong to someone else. You share my same appetite for the finest gift God gave to man." Nahari cupped Demeter's butt. "I was with another man a bit earlier today to release some stress." Demeter shrugged. Nahari raised a brow, curious. "With Huey?" "Heavens, no," she laughed. "Then who?" "Are you jealous?" Demeter giggled. "Curious. Well, if you must know, I have a boyfriend my father doesn't know about. And my boyfriend knows nothing of you. I wanted to marry him, but your family can bring us peace and riches. Do you mind if I keep him around?" "Far be it from me to keep one from the pursuits of the heart." "Why not marry the farm boy?" "Oh, he's not a farm boy." Demeter swatted Nahari's arm. Nahari gripped her tight, petting Demeter. "Who is he?" "Don't worry. Focus on me while you're with me, and I'll be loyal to you." Demeter shook Nahari's cock, easing him back inside of her as she kissed him deeply. Nahari sucked in her tongue, ignoring it for a while. For now, she was his woman until he decided to give her back. Demeter moaned and cursed, feeling stretched out by the new dick in her life. At the time, she had sex with her boyfriend to comfort him. Nahari was drilling inside of her, making her forget his face. Demeter stared at Nahari in shock, feeling like it was her first time. Nahari grabbed her throat, holding her against the headboard until Demeter's face turned red, and she released all over him, squirting on his chest in the bed. Demeter lay gasping as his seed dripped from inside her, filling up her womb. Demeter picked herself up like a good soldier, gathering her strength and pinning down Nahari. Panting for air, she forced him down as she slammed her weight on him. Nahari held her hips as Demeter gave as good as she got, milking him for the rest of his seed. Demeter fell on his chest in exhaustion, having napped enough for another round. "You would kill me if we were married." Demeter bit his earlobe, kissing down his neck, chest down his pelvis to examine his penis. "So you're not fond of the arrangement either?" Nahari asked. "I'm not against that. I would be sacrificing a lot, but it would be for my country. Not to mention getting more acquainted with this guy." She kissed up his penis, measuring him in kisses in her head. "Your boyfriend. Can you please drop it?" Demeter sighed, dropping his dick and sitting up exasperated. "What's wrong?" "Nothing. I'm fine." "You can tell me. Maybe I can help you," Nahari offered. "I want to marry him and fuck you, okay? If I was hoping maybe the sex would be bad, or you'd be old, then I would feel less bad when I saw you. It's like, nope, definitely gotta see the dick. You unleashed something in me so passionate and hungry. If you can be with your boyfriend, do you think you can help me marry Catherine?" "What?" Demeter asked, offended. "What did I say? You have a beau already. Surely this tryst can create such jealousy," Nahari petitioned. "How do you even know Catherine? Is she the one who got you? You two know each other?" Demeter got up, marching around the room. "Only met her today as I met you." "No, you fess up. I told you everything. You meet Catherine one day and you want to marry her?" "I know her family is the better man to my family. There's a rift in my grandfather's reign, and they were distant since those times. Catherine got sent away when we were young. She's also full-blooded Ekru. For my family to ever have a son with the God's eye, two full-blooded Ekru of the ancient bloodline must have children. To be honest, grandchildren and great-grandchildren. There's no telling if it'll work. Is this why your father sent you? No, it is my wish. If you wish for us to get married, then we can dance with one another until we're old and gray. You need to release your paramour, and I'll say goodbye to mine. Or, we can both pursue our matters of the heart. I want what's best for my people. I can either do what's best for them now. I do believe Catherine might be what's best in the long term. And your boyfriend might be for you and your people. You are what's best for my people. You're not a brute like your brother. If you do not want me to bring up Catherine or your boyfriend, do not bring up my brother. Nahari, I forbid you from talking to Catherine. I will explain things to Orion. You cannot forbid me of anything. I'm not your property. Nor will marriage give you ownership of me. Nahari, relax. She is my friend. Those are hard to come by in my life. Please, leave Catherine alone. Especially if you're having sex with my servants. I didn't expect your servant to. I know. I saw when Madison clumsily snuck in here and she tried talking herself into it. I just surprised Madison even had the audacity. So that's her name. Do you have sex with a lot of women? The beater was perturbed. Only the beautiful ones. I leave the rest for the other fishermen like your boyfriend. I'm not beautiful. We had sex, did we not? Demeter rubbed her temples, trying to process her situation. She wondered why Nahari didn't love her as she loved him. She spent weeks fantasizing about their first time together on their wedding night. Day was far from their wedding with his indignant attitude. Her rise to be queen felt so assured before she met him. Maybe his brother would have been a better option. I wasn't trying to upset you. I guess it was the wrong time. I don't mean I would rather be with Catherine than you. I merely thought your heart belonged to another. I'm a woman. I love many things, Nahari. I want to be queen. Do you understand me? Demeter grabbed his dick and her glare intensified. Your boy, don't fucking repeat it. I want to be queen. Demeter's chest was heaving up and down as her breath became audible. You're fucking scary. Nahari's dick swelled with excitement. You better believe it. I'm not some princess playing dolly and dressing up. I'm Lieutenant Demeter Qatar, and you will respect me. Hell, I cheated my boyfriend with my soldiers already. I imagine you'll be fucking more of my maids or your servants. I have your babies, we get married, and all that bullshit stops. Don't ever bring up my boyfriend again. And don't you so much look at Catherine or else. You threatening me? You're a long way from home, my sweet prince. And you came here alone. Demeter sucked her tongue while shaking her head in pity. I am the dread wolf of Ekru. I am all we needed to destroy your army, Nahari said calmly, rubbing Demeter's chin. Demeter stood on her knees before him, holding his cock tight in her grip as she tried to find a response. Nahari grabbed the back of Demeter's head, ramming his cock down her gaping mouth. Demeter widened her mouth to avoid her teeth as her eyes rolled on the back of her skull. She couldn't even hear herself think, only the brief moments of gasping for air as he resumed hitting the back of her throat. He released her head, letting her catch her breath as he sized her up further, wondering if there would be more backlash. Demeter studied him, breathing through her nose, covering herself up in her sheets, feeling completely exposed and vulnerable. Demeter shivered, wanting to respond but fearful of the truth. Hearing the stories of Nahari's military campaigns, if he did come alone, it wasn't a bluff as to why he wasn't afraid. Her father told her Jin would bring trouble, but the wolf is the dangerous one. I apologize. Nahari bowed his head. Demeter lowered the sheets, letting her see her hardened nipples and skin in goosebumps. Demeter laid on her back, welcoming him once more. Nahari nodded, warming up her body with his. Demeter's body quivered as he entered her once more. They kissed gently, feeling each other out, but enjoying each other's body. The idea of marriage floated in both minds as they took their time. Demeter held Nahari, refusing to let him go. I forgive you. Now stay a while with me while I nap. Demeter kissed him. Honestly, I can use a rest, but I must eat. I'm starving. Why did you travel alone? I travel faster alone. I can go at my own pace. I can take whatever route I want, and setting up camp is much easier if you only need to keep pace and drink water. With a caravan, you must rely on so many other people. If you're to be king, then you must lead nations, Demeter explained. Jin wants to be king. I want what's best for Akru. Nahari responded with a labored sigh. You want to be king? My father wishes me to be king. Exile my brother to keep him from leading a revolt. Give my little sister some lesser rule to keep her busy and dignified. He thinks I would make a good king. Being king seems so daunting and boring. I prefer my role as guardian. If my brother wasn't so arrogant and bloodthirsty, I could give up all visions of being king. But I fear his reign. Nahari plucked a few grapes in his mouth before taking a sip of wine. Demeter pressed her breast on his back, draping her arms around Nahari's neck as she kissed his cheek. I think you would make a good king. Nahari shuddered, blushing as she continued whispering in his ear, kissing down his back and up his neck again. You're so wise and so brave for stepping before an entire army alone. A people ruled by a coward will cower behind him, and those led by a brute will die beside him. You are my king, and I'll be your queen. Demeter lays him down, lifting the grapes and cheese, bread and olive tray onto her bed, beginning to feed him. We will take over together and complement each other's strengths. We will be a unified front against our enemies, and a beacon of hope for all our benefactors. Don't you agree? I believe the best rulers are those the people choose. Do you realize your region is primed for a civil war? Nahari asked. If you can defeat our army, you'll surely defeat the enemy's, Demeter rationalized. You know what? I will give you a secret. You can use it as you wish. I will tell you how I will beat your army. I sneak out here after killing your guards or your general. Leave your king to face his mistake. Then alert the enemies of your loss. I will let Maya destroy itself. I may not even have to kill a single person myself. Walking through your cities and town, they say this castle hasn't opened up to anyone but foreign merchants in years. The people of the villages nearby sharpen their tools and train their men, Nahari explained. We've lost some great people to this squabble. Demeter rolls her eyes, minimizing the threat in her mind. What does your father plan to do about the Civil War? There is no war yet, Demeter sighed, wanting to respect her father. Demeter, I am here to help you. Nahari looks her straight in the eyes. When I spoke of a coward and a brute, I was referring to my father and your brother. My father keeps convincing himself there is no war, or we can hide in the castle forever. My control will fix this mess. Demeter squeezed the cheese knife tight. Nahari lowered her hand, taking the knife away from her, setting it down. I'm sorry, Demeter hugged him. That's okay. If I had a better idea of what went wrong, I could help you fix this situation, Nahari offered. I'm only given reports and briefings. No one has told me to my face what's going on. You might be better at getting that information if you keep your ear to the ground, she suggests. Nahari nodded, dipping the fresh bread in the olive oil, tasting as if Madison had waited for it to leave the oven. He had to thank her once he saw her again. He polished off his cup of wine and laid down with a handful of grapes and Demeter in his other arm. Demeter kissed his chest before drifting to sleep at his side. Nahari sat up thinking. After finding a way to destroy Maya, he reverse-engineered his plan to save Maya from sure destruction. A marriage might strengthen Maya's army, but it would not save the nation. Maya's most outstanding issue was the disparity between the royal family and its nobles, and the millions of farmhands and artisans who lived scattered about the mainland and islands. They all sent their wages, grains, and goods to the royal family. Then one day, one shipment stopped, then a few dozen, and then hundreds and thousands refused to send anything to the royal family until conditions improved for the villagers. Their families were starving, and they were sending the food they worked months to cultivate to the same people, ignoring their needs. Nahari found himself back at the library while Demeter snored. He missed out on checking out his father's journal, but knew of a few others. Nahari studied silently away from view in a corner, enjoying the silence of the environment. He read a book on Mayan history as he learned about how the grand divide between the rich and the poor happened. Chapter 5. Katara and Mattis were hanging out by the kitchen, thinking how much he didn't break as the cooks snuck them a meal for Queens. Madison hated using her position to bribe the others, but Katara felt that she should get treated like a princess as she worked so close to the princess. Katara walked with her head high, mimicking Demeter's Santim whenever apart from her mistress, walking around the other servants and serfs as if her word were law. Katara sat checking her nails as they got their bowls of soup. Thank you very much, Katara gleamed as she stared the soup for tonight's dinner before even the king. Thanks so much, everyone. Oh my god, thank you for the bread. Madison held her chest, shaking hands and hugging everyone who served them. Katara giggled at her as she blew her soup, keeping her distance as she held her head high. How is it, Madison asked, surprised to see the soup still steaming. Whenever she wasn't with Katara, it was rare that her meal was hot. It's delicious. Fish chowder, I believe. Oh, wow. And the bread is fresh out of the oven. You must have some. Katara broke off half the loaf, extending it to Madison. Thank you. I have such an appetite after today. What did you do that was so strenuous? I thought today was the easiest day. I slept inside that handsome prince's room all day until you came and got me. I had the sweetest dreams, Katara swooned. Madison blushed. Well, I thought how Demeter treated you was unfair. Katara rolled her eyes. That bitch. So, I kinda, sorta, had sex with the prince. Madison hid her face. Katara's face nearly fell into her soup as she stammered for a response. Mild-mannered, scared of her own shadow, Madison did what? Katara's face twisted in envy as she tried to imagine the two together, but lacked the needed details. Katara took a deep breath to contain her anger. Was he making love to Madison? How did that even happen? Katara crossed her arms, feeling herself lose her appetite. Well, Demeter took me along, and while I was waiting by the door, he told me to fetch him some food, so I came back and heard them having sex, like, really rough. And I watched from the door, and my body felt on fire. I left before they saw. And then I found him laying naked when I brought his food inside. I was going to leave, but his dick was so big, I had a bit of a taste. I guess I enjoyed it so much it turned into a meal because I woke him up, and once he woke up, he bent me over, and he had his way with me. Madison recapped step by step. Katara nodded. So he's not the posh and prim prince like the rest of these wet blankets, huh? How was it? It was ever so lovely. It was the first time I felt like a woman since coming to this castle. More than furniture or a servant, but a real woman. I may attend to him later, Madison planned. Did you bleed? Why would I have bled? I lost my maidenhead years ago, sweet child. No, it felt wonderful. Far better than my first time. Are you still a child? Madison giggled, teasing Katara. I'm not a child. I'm saving myself for marriage, Katara stuck out her tongue. Oh, sweet child, I love your idealism. I lost my virginity for a warm bed and soup. He demanded if he gave me board, I should be his woman. I played his game before returning home to my family. Why did you leave? Madison sighed, pulling her dress down around her shoulder blade. Healed bruises and scars littered her back. When I wasn't in the mood to be his riding mount, he would go for a drink. If he hadn't enough money for a whore, and I wasn't in a better mood when he returned, he would get into a drunken rage and beat me. One night he let go drinking, and he left to go drinking, and I left to catch a carriage. My parents didn't have the coin to feed me, so I had to come to the castle for work. Madison shrugged, sharing her story. Well, that sounds horrific. My sister was in a similar situation. She told me to never have sex with any man who didn't want to be my husband. She said only husbands don't beat their wives. I'm not sure if that's true, but I do know if a man truly loves you, then he tempers his anger or goes hunting instead of putting his hands on you. Madison nodded. The guards usually try to get me to sleep with them. You're gorgeous, Katara. I even hear Demeter is jealous of your beauty, so protect yourself. I had sex with him to get revenge for you, but if Demeter caught us, it would have been my head, Madison confessed. Let us just eat our meal in peace. I don't want to think about Demeter. But can you tell me more about sex with the prince? Katara whispered. They received their main course, and each woman was served a roasted game hen with lemon butter and rosemary. Katara clamped her hands in excitement as she rolled up her sleeves. Madison hugged the chef, patting his back and thanking him profusely. Do you like the food? The chef asked Katara, who had nearly finished half her quill. I love it. Do you have more? Katara asked. The chef tightened his eyes. What? No, thank you? I'm not gonna suck your dick because you make good chicken. Fine. Forget I even asked. Katara rolled her hand. Oh my god. I'm not starting this takeover. I'm sorry. Oh my god. Katara rolled her hand in his direction for him to leave. This isn't at all what I meant. A bit of gratitude, the chef stood offended. Thank you. Katara imitated Demeter as she made direct eye contact with the chef, daring him to confront her. The chef took a deep breath, bowing his head and excusing himself. What are you doing? Why did you treat him like that? I'm practicing. Practicing for what? For when I become Queen of Ekru. If the prince slept with you, he's probably dying to take my virginity, and that's my price. You're gonna give him your virginity to become queen? Pretty good deal, honestly. Madison nodded. Stick with me, maybe you can come to Ekru with me, Katara smiled. I'm not sure your plan would work. Demeter and the prince seem to like one another. What do you mean? Oh, please. Demeter's a slut. She seems like they're soldiers for morale. She has her little boyfriends who think she's devoted and pure, not to mention how she plays her father for a fool. Once he realizes what Demeter is like, he'll be done with her. You understand? Sometimes a man wants a fool who's good at sex. Madison shrugged. Men like him want a woman who can run a nation. Men like him want to run the nation and be served when they come home. He doesn't want you playing queen while he fixes your messes. Do you think you would make a better queen? I don't want to be queen. And judging by how he dresses and carries himself, I don't think he's the prince everyone expected. So maybe when he leaves, he'll take me with him regardless. He and Demeter do seem rather interested in one another. I don't think I'm going to interfere. If Demeter finds out about us talking about this, she'll lose all trust in us. There's no telling where we'll end up. I'm going back to Ekru as its queen. You can stay here without thinking. Tara was sucking her fingers clean and wiping her hands in her rough spun dress. Air Ekru is beautiful year-round. No harsh winters like here, no cruel summers like Naka. Madison fond as she ate a drumstick. Where is that prince? I think we can rush this along, you know? Tell him about how to take over this place, then head back to his room to eat some more? Katara asked. Madison shrugged. I didn't get to know much about him as he took me. I imagine I learned a bit about his nature, but not of his habits or mind. Do you read a lot or something? Katara asked. My parents were massive on reading. My father said those who can't read are controlled by those who do. I don't read enough, but sometimes I go to the library, Madison answered. I know most of my letters, and I like how flipping through the pages makes me feel smart. No one ever taught me, so I figured most out myself. I'm great with my numbers, Katara smiled proudly. Explains a lot. I didn't know you couldn't read. Hey, don't go trying to manipulate me now. I may not be book smart, but I'm genius. Katara waxed her finger before slurping down her soup. Where are you from? Madison asked. Mom was a prostitute. She left me with my dad. My dad was a drunk. He left me at home and never came back. I had enough food for a week. Then I killed the chickens when I got hungry and tried to keep the farm, but then these castle-born bastards took the farm. I lived independently for 5 years until the Warwall army came and took our land. The guards thought that I was cute, but I told them I was only 11, but I was 13 and started bleeding. They left me alone because they don't want to get called a kid fucker. Kid fuckers are the worst, Madison spat. The worst are the molesters. They don't fuck you. They dehumanize you, strip you down and turn you an object. They do everything they want to me, then send me on my day like they're not fucking up my brain every time they do that shit. Katara hugged herself, beginning to hyperventilate. How old are you now? 19. Katara frowned. Maybe you don't have to be queen, and we can still escape, Madison asked. Katara pondered for a moment and nodded in agreement. I thought maybe he would be an easy ticket, but if we can get away from here and get some acreage of land, I know how to farm better than anyone. Maybe he can still help, but the way he made love to me, he isn't looking for marriage. I believe he has an older brother who's already declared himself the next king of Ekru. So he's not the king? Well, his father is still alive, Madison notes. My dad's still alive, and I'm still in here getting molested by guards whenever they please. Katara dipped her bread into the remainder of her soup. You know, that's why Demeter got angry at you. These people take their kings and queens very seriously. Saying someone else is a king to someone loyal to nobility is treason. Newsflash, this king sucks. Katara whispered shouts at Madison. I know, it's quite dreadful. Let's get moving before someone hears our conversation. You may not know it yet, but the walls have ears in this castle, Madison warned. Maybe death is better than this life, you know? Katara suggested. Please don't do anything drastic. If these guards leave me alone, I'll be fine. Maybe Nahari can help you. Is that his name? I believe that's what everyone's been calling him. Unless it's some title. I believe it's his name, Madison shrugs. Well, let Nahari know I'm looking for him. Katara says loud enough for the spies to hear, and all the sparrows fly away to their masters. You're going to get us killed, Madison squeezes her arm. I am not dying, Katara said with conviction. The pair scampered away from the kitchens, finding chores to busy themselves to lower any suspicion of their escape. Meanwhile, they discussed plans and ideas for a getaway. Both had stashed away coins, and Katara had earned gold for her deeds for the guards. They figured they had enough for a carriage and a small patch of land with a dirty hut in the village outside the castle. It would be enough to be away from their servitude. Chapter 6. Catherine passed by the two maids, trying to recollect their names, but finding it impossible to say where she knew them. Catherine changed into a robe like tunica, exposing her shoulders and cleavage with sandals. She carried the journal in her hand, skimming the book while walking through the corridors. Catherine was on her way to the early dinner before seeing Demeter stumbling through the halls. Catherine giggled as the hazy look in Demeter's eyes, who draped her arms around her best friend in anguish. "What's wrong, Demi?" Catherine asked Demeter to take her arms. Catherine asked Demeter to take her arms as they entered the grand dining hall, where many families sit among themselves at the tables. Demeter smirked. "I made love to my husband all morning until I passed out. I'm so tired. More tired than our physical training at the crack of dawn. He wore me out." "You had sex with him? That little affair in the hallways? So you were fine after all. Does Orion know you found a new man?" Catherine smirked, feeling Demeter's tactics were silly at best. "Well, I didn't plan to have sex with him, but once we got alone, it felt so natural. Nahari is so gifted. I'm gonna break up with Orion soon. I might not have one last ride before I let him know I'm someone else's." "Well, you could always stay with Orion. I spoke to the prince earlier today in the library. He wants to teach me how to command the ether. He also proposed to marry me." Catherine blushed. Demeter shifted as she feigned a smile, before it faded into contempt. "Look, I'll tell you the same thing I told him. Stay away from each other. I'm figuring out the details. I am going to be queen. I am going to marry Nahari. You can have Orion. I don't want your sloppy seconds or thirds. Nahari's proposal made sense. You don't want to leave Maya, and Orion loves you more than life itself. We can avoid a lot of trouble by Nahari and me getting to know each other better." "No," Demeter whined. "Well, you can't stop me from seeing him, or from training me. I will tell him if I catch you together, he will never have sex with me again. After today, I don't think he'll refuse me. Besides, you don't even have sex. What would you do with a man like him?" "Follow his lead and have his children?" Catherine shrugged. She hadn't given it much thought. Demeter sucked her teeth. "Does he like you?" Catherine blushed, looking away for a moment to save Demeter the embarrassment. "Who wouldn't love those big boobies? Your breast probably did all the talking for you." Demeter pouted, feeling jealous of her friend's assets. "I did my speaking for me. We talked. He spoke mostly, and it made good sense. I didn't tell him about Orion, but I did tell him I was interested." Catherine shrugs. "Catherine, don't get involved. I don't want to have to hurt you if you ruin this for my family and me. We have a chance to end the revolution, reclaim Maya for the royal family, and preserve the bloodline for another 10,000 years. I get that you want to be happy with another Ekru man, but he came here for me. I'm getting rid of my loose ends. I don't want you to be one of them. It's worse enough that he had sex with my maid. I have seen those two around. Has Nahari taken the younger one's virginity? Heavens, no. I kept him and Guitar far apart and plan to keep it that way. The way the girl seems, she'll be another wet pussy trying to steal my man. It was Madison. I was so shocked I couldn't even stop them. I wasn't aware he was into an older woman, but so be it. At least Madison is trustworthy," Demeter explained. Catherine frowned, knowing Demeter was only trying to dissuade her. And it worked perfectly. The idea of having sex with a maid was sickening. Catherine had it hard enough being a foreigner not to respect the social caste system in Maya. The caste system was the only thing keeping Catherine from being harnessed by the guards or cleaning floors. Maya wasn't fond of foreigners, and many filled the streets. People searching for a better life and freedom became homeless beggars trying to find a way back home. Catherine was grateful for her position, but all the same it was difficult adjusting to being a fancy dressed away from being a second-class citizen. Why keep me from him? If you marry Orion, you can still become the queen of Maya. If I marry Orion, I'll be a princess forever. Orion isn't a prince. He's a soldier, and barely a good soldier. I love him because he's a sweetheart, but he's no leader and not royalty. I want to be queen. I want power to end this civil war before it starts. At least you're honest about your selfishness. Everyone gets twirled around your finger, I guess, while you do whatever you want to do with the pieces on your chessboard. You're supposed to be my friend helping me, Demeter urges. I will help you, but you should speak to Orion before trying to keep me from my own prince. I'm Ekru first and foremost. If my prince needs me or wishes to call upon me, I will serve him. Catherine nods in assurance. As long as you keep those other girls away and help me in the civil war, I'll turn a blind eye to whatever love affair you may develop with my husband. As long as we remember who will be queen when this is all said and done, I won't interfere with you two. Demeter extends her hand. Catherine hugs her tightly, kissing her cheek and hugging her. Deal. Demeter giggles as they release each other, beginning to gossip about how to handle Orion and Nahari. Their conversation quickly ended as Nahari entered from the south and Orion from the west. The two women studied how differently the men behaved. Chapter 7. If you blinked, it's as if Nahari disappeared into the crowd, blending in with the people, laughing and listening to their stories. He sat at their tables, enjoying the appetizers set out for all instead of the royal delicacies at the main table. Orion, at 6'5", wearing a grimace after hearing rumors of his wife to be fawning over a new arrival at the palace. Orion bumped into people, glaring at them until they apologized, bulldozing his way to Demeter. Standing before the royal table, he bowed his head before motioning Demeter to come with him. Demeter politely excused herself from Catherine, holding her hands for a moment before leaving to join Orion. Orion gathered himself, beginning to lead her out in the dining hall and the tower's corridors with a bit more privacy. Orion tugged Demeter in, kissing her and lifting her on the railing. Demeter quietly gave him what he wanted, letting him kiss all over her and fondle her breast and butt. After Demeter let out a long yawn, Orion stood alert, growing pissed off and feeling like a fool. Are you tired already? Orion growled. I'm sorry, it's been a very eventful day. How are you, my love? I'm humiliated. The men say you were swaying over this darky from across the desert. Do you do all this for him? So the rumors are true? I haven't heard any rumors. Maybe people are just trying to get in your head. Maybe you're a lying bitch trying to use me, Orion accused. Demeter sighed. My father wants me to marry him, Ori. I told you, I'm performing my duty as a princess. You aren't going anywhere. But I won't be your husband, either. I will not be the ruler of Maya. In all our dreams of being Maya to the world stage. Was it just bunk? No, it's still my dream, but I can be queen. If I marry the prince, there's still room for you. What good would that do the world? A manipulative whore like you? Have you had sex with my comrades? You fucked the prince the first day you met him? Why would I want you? Who needs you as queen? What? Demeter covered her mouth in shock. I haven't heard you deny anything yet. What the hell is going on, Demeter? Orion shouted, loud enough for others to hear. Orion shot a glare of disdain, sending any passerby on their way as he turned to Demeter. Demeter rubbed his plated armor, kissing his cheek as she tried to calm him down. I must keep up morale when the men are busy training. It's not sex, it's a form of exercise for the men, and a bonding activity. Demeter gently explained. So you don't even deny it? I thought you were mine. Orion wailed, gripping his hair, unable to believe his ears. It's not like it's out of love. They simply take turns or go out at once. And then when it's done, it's right back to training. You're the one I love. Orion had a fire in his eyes as he shoved Demeter from the windowsill. Demeter shrieked, screaming in horror as her body plummeted at least 50 feet below into the rocks, missing the water of the moat. Orion laughed as he headed away from the dining hall, trying to cover his bases entirely and form his alibi. Katara held her breath from behind the wall, paralyzed by shock as she watched the murder. Katara covered her mouth to stop screaming, prying herself away, rushing inside the dining hall from the east entrance to gather her thoughts and find Nahari. Once inside the dining hall, she moved by people bumping into drunk men trying to sneak a grope. Katara swatted their hands away, frantically searching for Nahari, who she found singing chantings and drinking from a mug of ale the size of his head. Nahari hopped down from the table, remembering the servant girl from earlier in the day, feeling dizzied by the liquor and pipe of her passed to him. Katara giggled for a moment, never expecting her prince to be so well liked by the poor. She hugged Nahari, crying into his chest and speaking in tongues as she recounted the events. I can't understand anything you've said, my little dove. Nahari led her away from the music and laughter. Excuse me, aren't you supposed to be working? Catherine intervened, the two leaving the dining hall together. Lady Catherine, Demeter is dead, Katara yelled. Catherine covered her mouth in shock, looking at Nahari and then Katara. She had been watching Nahari adoringly the entire time, and there's no way he could have done it. And Katara lacked any real training to fight Demeter in a fair fight until she recounted Orion. Searching the room around for him and finding no trace of him or Demeter. She was with Orion last, Catherine confirmed. He went that way. Katara grabbed Nahari's hand, going after Orion. Nahari kept up the pace, running after Katara. Katara's eyes grew a crimson red color that Nahari mentally noted. Although Katara didn't look traditionally Ekru, a rarity outside of Ekru, there was no telling how far her bloodline went before arriving at this castle. Katara's eyes could follow the energy of Orion until the trail went cold at the soldiers' barracks where a fight was going on. Orion had a younger female soldier in a headlock. Her clothes were hanging from her in ribbons. Orion wrestled her to the ground, mouthing himself on top of her while she kicked at him, catching his face and chin, trying to pry him off. Orion lifted her listlessly and slammed her head onto the ground, then again for good measure. Orion covered her mouth to prevent her from screaming. I don't see anyone, Nahari stated, looking around the barracks. Orion had taken her behind the walls into the prayer room where few people went outside of the genuinely devoted. The woman had been praying after the royal army raided her family's village over the weekend. Orion's heartbeat raced as his sweat began beating down from his brow. He squeezed her mouth until she passed out and dropped to where she lay to return later. Orion gathered himself and went out to the prayer room with his chest held high. Orion stood a neck above Nahari, looking down in contempt before noting Catherine and Katara. Lady Catherine, why have you brought your servants to speak to me? Have they come to clean the barracks finally? Orion crossed his arms over his chest. We were looking for Demeter. We thought you two were together, Catherine states as politely as possible. I haven't seen Demeter. Where did you get such scratches and bruising? Nahari asked, touching Orion's cheeks. Orion jumped back, nurturing his cheek on where his prey had drawn blood, leaving him looking guiltier. Orion's hand slightly made it to his hilt as he brought his attention to his cheek. He let a sorrowful bellow as he felt his face. I may have seen her. After asking her if she had sex with every single soldier in the royal army, and she said yes, she grew wrathful and struck me repeatedly, then told me to go to the barracks until she called for me. I've been here since. I swear. He's lying, Katara accused. Orion swatted her quickly across the face, knocking Katara off her feet from the full force, as if trying to hit a man twice her size. Nahari leapt forward without thinking, kicking Orion into the leg with his heel. The kick found his mark right between Orion's knee and shin, Bringing the giant man down without much fight or effort, Orion screamed in pain as his legs snapped inside his armor, making it impossible to move. "Brother Orion, are you okay?" A legion of soldiers entered the room surrounding Nahari and Catherine. "Help me! Help me! The darkies are rebelling against us. They should have killed Demeter, and now the assassins attempt to silence me. Help me, brothers and sisters," Orion screamed. "He killed Demeter. Orion pushed Demeter over the railing of the Grand Hall into the moat. Check the moat, you'll find her body," Katara lashed out. Many of the guards are familiar with Katara. They quietly noted not wanting to disobey their superior officer for the woman they lusted for so desperately. The men left Katara alone, encircling Catherine and Nahari. Nahari stared Orion in the eyes, vowing in his head to get his revenge and bring this bastard to justice. Orion smirked from the floor as Nahari raised his hands into the air, being tugged along. "What are you doing? Kill him now," Orion demanded. "If you do more than bring me to prison, I will kill every last one of you in your armor. Mark my words, I'm an innocent man, and you protector in the murder of your princess," Nahari threatened, making all the soldiers back away from him. "We're innocent. Demeter was my best friend. I saw Orion leave with Demeter from the Grand Hall. Hundreds of people did, and Katara came to tell us what happened. It was Orion," Catherine pleaded, beginning to cry frantically as the remainder of the soldiers corralled her. "It was Orion," Katara held her face. "They're liars. Demeter was my beloved, my betrothed. I would never commit such an atrocity to Bot," Orion pleaded. "He found out you all had sex with Demeter and killed her." Katara sealed the nail in Orion's coffin and the guards seized him. "Take them all in." The woman gathered herself from their fair room, half naked, bleeding profusely. "Sergeant Myra," a man shouted, coming to his superior officer's side in aid. "Orion attempted to rape me. I know nothing of our princess. Arrest Orion for maltreating me." Sergeant Myra grasped control over the situation. Chapter 8. Orion was stunned and silent as Myra came humbling out like a lame dog, cursing the bitch under his breath, unable to talk his way out of the situation. Orion relinquished himself, unable to fight with his broken leg, causing tears to fall from his eyes from seeing his second victim breathing. "Take the men in for questioning. Let them rot in the dungeon." "I apologize, Lady Catherine, for the inconvenience. And you, runt, get back to work," Myra demanded, regaining her composure and command. Nahari observed the sergeant's muscular frame and curvaceous form. Myra was agile and sleek like an acrobat. Regardless, she stood a foot under Orion, at least 100 pounds less than the man. Though her beauty was captivating, she wore a stern look seemingly permanently etched to her face, if not drawn darker through the grief of being dominated by Orion. "I promise you, my lady, I am innocent," Nahari professed, hoping he could reach her human core. "I don't know your father. Arrest both these men, and within months, you'll face trial." Mara put her hands up to silence Nahari, ignoring his words, wanting to hear nothing else from a man. Myra gave her command and left the room to clean herself. Katara and Catherine stood alone in the barracks, helpless, as Nahari was arrested and dragged to the dungeon. Orion groaned at them as he was moved to a wooden stretcher due to his broken leg. Orion's eyes practically begged them not to tell the truth to save us from Myra's wrath. Catherine rushed out of the barracks needing fresh air, and Katara pursued her to the courtyard. Nahari silently followed after the guards, his arms raised above his head into the dark, dank cellars of the dungeon. Myra was the first to approach him, sending the soldiers and guards away as she stood alone with Nahari. "Did you do it?" "I was in front of 100 witnesses that placed me at the dining hall before I was at the library. You can ask the librarian. I'm completely innocent." "And before that, did you sleep with Demeter?" Myra asked, spitting the blood on the ground as she checked her teeth. Nahari nods. Did you kill her? No, I didn't, Nahari shouts in anger. Naira frowned. I have your word against the commander's word. I doubt anyone is going to believe you. Do you believe me? Nahari wondered. I do. Ryan spoke about it while attempting to rape me. He practically bragged, telling me I would be his new princess or his next victim. Myra shuddered, remembering her trauma and blacking out for a moment before realizing Nahari's eyes still scrutinized her, feeling vulnerable before his gaze. So why are you doing this, Sergeant? Nahari asked. I don't know what you will do knowing your princess is dead. I had stories about you and your chaos. If I let you free, you can tell our enemies everything is in disarray. It doesn't matter to me whether or not you're guilty. You're too dangerous for me to let free, Myra said with conviction. I'm not here to harm your kingdom. I made love to Demeter. We planned for our marriage, Nahari shouted. You are not listening to me. You are too dangerous to my plans. You have your own will and intentions, none of which you've shared with me. For all I know, you are a good guy, which makes you even more dangerous when I'm planning. And you're already loyal to Demeter. There's no shot you'll join my side so easily. I am not going to stand idle for how Orion disgraced me. He represents this damn royal family. All these nobles, my friends, and family died to keep the king rich. I'll keep you in a cell until I've gained control over the kingdom. Then I may consider freeing you. To show me what you truly gave Demeter. Whether you want to fuck me or not. Myra patted his cheeks. You'll regret falsely imprisoning me, Nahari growled, staring straight into Myra's eyes. I do not live a life of regrets. Enjoy your stay in the dungeons of my sweet prince. I'll be back for you when you're more cooperative and ready to obey your new mistress. Myra shoved him back, closing the cell door. Myra smiled, enjoying her newfound power with the void of Orion and Demeter controlling the military as commander and lieutenant. They had so much power, no one dared second guess or question them. Even as Demeter offered her bodies to the soldiers, Orion abused the women in service and around the castle. Myra awaited an opportunity to bring justice to the corruption she found poisoning her home in Maya. This royal family has used Maya for its luxuries and extravagance for generations, while providing nothing back to the people. Myra was tired of being a pawn for the king's terrorism upon the innocents. It was time to bring justice to the people. Myra next visited Orion, who was in the infirmary, crying and tearing at his leg. Then Nahari broke. Myra admired the prince's work, never seeing a clean and precise blow as if he had intended to break straight through the armor. Lady Sergeant, how are you? A weary doctor was wearing thin, bloody cloth, raggedy rags as she tried removing Orion's armor, but to no avail. I'm well. But what seems to be the issue? Myra asked. The way his leg broke has made it impossible for me to remove his armor. It's already so heavy. The old woman rubbed her frail arms, moving for Myra to try. What will happen to his leg if we cannot remove the armor? Myra examined his leg while pushing him to the edge of the table and watching it hang. If it gets infected, I may have to amputate it, though. It'll be nearly impossible with the commander's armor. I'll have to call Dale the blacksmith to help me. The doctor wiped the sweat from her eyebrow, trying to see through the armor. Myra smiled as she glittered Orion dead in the eyes. What a shame, Myra said without a hint of remorse in her tone as she drew her sword. My lady, put your sword away. I apologize. Orion raised his hands. Shh. Myra hushed Orion, putting a gentle finger to his lip before turning the doctor around and giving her a slight nudge to leave. The doctor held her ears, praying under her breath as she left the room. Myra tiptoed her finger up over Ryan's chest to his face, pinching his nose playfully before pacing around his body like a shark in a bloody tank. Orion's heartbeat went quicker and quicker until he couldn't feel his heart at all. I'm going to help you. For the gift you gave me today, I will give you the honor and glory a man like yourself deserves. Myra smiled. Thank you for your mercy, Sergeant Myra. Commander Orion bowed his head in shame. Orion let out a relieved sigh, closing his eyes as he tried to block out the pain he felt in his leg. He blinked, feeling a slight breeze against his knee. Then suddenly, nothing. Losing sensation in his toes and his broken leg, Orion smiled for only a moment before a searing pain overcame his leg. As he moved to grab Myra to question what she had done, she danced away effortlessly. Orion puts all his weight down to find his leg had become a stump. He topples to the ground, weighed down by his armor. Orion could not roll over as Myra stepped on his neck, making him stare at his leg as he bellows in horror, screaming at the top of his lungs from the agonizing pain and fear. You killed my cousin Demeter. Myra released his neck. Orion stammers. You were jealous the prince made love to her, that your men made love to her, and you tried to use me to get back at her, after you already murdered the princess. I'm gonna give you all you deserve, Orion. I will be your doctor today, and I will give you the healing you desperately need, Myra said, kicking the man over, taking Orion's blade, then encircling his groin, before laughing at his screams as she buries the sword inside, bursting his genitals and ripping out his anus. The doctor covered her ears, tearing up as she was the only one in the castle to hear Orion's screams. She was curled into a ball in the corner of the office, trying not to look Myra in the eyes. The doctor's body shook as she stared at the ground, her knees bending as she tried to appear as small as possible. He's all yours now, Doctor. Myra was polite, helping the doctor out of the corner. The doctor was mortified, unable to respond or regain her composure, as she mechanically patched up Orion. Orion groaned, fading in and out of consciousness as the doctor began to compress to stop the bleeding. The doctor went into shock, fading into an automatic state as Orion bled to death in her hands. The doctor was quiet, unable to cry even after Myra had left them. To restore Myra's vision of order to the kingdom without the commander or princess to stop her, Myra planned to seize complete control. Chapter 9. Madison had been in the dining hall the entire time. Madison laughed and joked with the other servants who had a table in the back of the room where they gambled and drank. All enjoyed their day of merriment until a blind 80-year-old man wobbled into the room. He had cataracts clouding his eyes. He was smelling the air, poking around the different groups until his gray eyes fell upon Madison. Master? The old man asked. Madison looked around at the people around her. As they fell silent, the group dispersed with the frail man's rancid smell and dirty silk garb. He looked like he was neither from the castle nor Maya at all. It smelled trouble throughout it, and if there was nothing else the servants of the course learned, they learned to stay far from danger and anyone new. Many outright avoided Nahari. The servants trusted very few who didn't share their torment. They held no envy for the wealthy and nobles, but rather a crude contempt and a rueful pity for those lorded over their lives. Master, I can smell your energy, but it's so low. Are you hurt? The man continued as he touched Madison's face. His hands were warm and smelled of scented oils and healing salves. The man ripped his hand away, holding it in shock. You are not my master. But you have my master's energy inside you. Where is my master? Are you looking for Nahari? Madison was as patient as she could muster. I seek Prince Nahari Nassim Samara, the Dread Wolf of Ekru, General of the Empire, the Guardian of the Ether. Where is my master? The old man was distressed. Madison marveled at the fancy title, swooning at having only made love to the man this morning. She tapped her lip, pondering whether she had seen Nahari afterward, but nope. Madison wanted to help the older man, but had no idea what to do or say. I have no idea, but we can look for him together. Madison smiled, believing Nahari might reward her for bringing whoever this was to him. Yes, I must find my master. I feel he is in danger. The old man was frantic. Summoned? Who are you, or rather, what are you? Madison backed up a bit, processing what the man said and his strange behavior. I am his familiar. I pledge my eternal soul to Prince Nahari. I must save him. What has happened to him? Nahari's servant explained. I wasn't aware Nahari was in any trouble. We should find Katara or Demeter, Madison suggested. I don't know these people. I must find my master. The man ran off on his own, following his nose and blind eyes, seeking Nahari's energy. Madison giggled at the older man and went off on her own to find Katara to get the latest tea. However, she knew she had to attend to Demeter soon, or she would never hear the end of it. Hey, Madison. She was stopped in the hallway by Hewin. Hey, Huey, you look glum. What's wrong? Madison asked, placing a light hand in his chest place. You haven't heard? Demeter's dead. I suspect that Orion killed her, but I haven't found Orion. We haven't found Demeter's body either. Hewin released an exasperated breath, fanning his face from the sweat and heat. Oh, how horrible! This explains the old man, Madison gasped. What old man? Hewin asked. An old blind man was looking for Nahari, his familiar. Oh God, no. He's one of his soldiers in our walls? The king's gonna have my head. The old man didn't look like a fighter. He was a spirit, Madison tried explaining. I don't have time for this. I have to find Orion and Myra. Get into bed. We shut down the halls to keep anyone from going into a frenzy. Not everyone knows. I'll be happy if I can at least maintain the peace, Hewin declared, standing tall. Oh, Huey, you're so noble and brave. Madison hugged him tight and quickly released him before running away. Hewin thought she acted strangely, but couldn't blame her for being overwhelmed by her feelings of love. He walked off with his head high, feeling recharged from her passionate hug. He never realized she had stolen his keyring. Madison quickly knew she had little time to move. They were looking down the castle. In truth, she had no idea what she was doing as she ran like hell to the dungeons, holding her breath from the smell of mold and rotting flesh. Fewer torches lit the pathway, making her feel brave as she descended into the pitch blackness. At last, she found another torch leading to a leaking room where a sleeping guard sat with his back to the locked door. Madison held her breath as she tiptoed past, trying to line up the keys with the door without waking the guard. Please, Bot, help me, she prayed as she closed her eyes, entering a key into the door and turning it, letting go of her breath. Huh, what was that? The guard fell out of his chair. The guard tried to rush to his feet to check the noise. Madison had already fled behind the door. Madison hugged herself as she walked through the dungeon the size of a village with people in the torture devices, cells, and hanging from the ceilings by their feet or necks, dead. A pile of rotting bodies sat in the middle of the room as the hunchback jail keeper tried lighting the bodies on fire. Madison couldn't breathe, her heart racing as she looked for Nahari. Master! The old man called out. Madison hid behind a pillar, watching as her elder swiftly moved around the room, with the jailkeeper chasing after him. Out! 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 The jailkeeper oinked until he began to tire. The blind man came running full force, throwing his body into the jailkeeper, knocking them both over. The older man rolls over his neck onto his feet, continuing to run, looking for Nahari. Here out! I'm up here! Nahari called down from the cage hanging above the room. Master, why are you up there? Oh, gasped. Well, I didn't choose to be up here, my friend. There's a lever connected to the chain. And please, hurry before they get more guards, Nahari called. Ode hopped up and down, too overwhelmed to look for a lever. Ode was pulling at its hair until it saw Nahari beginning to lower. Madison using all her strength to turn the crank. Oat ran to her side, helping her move the crank, surprising her with his strength. Madison left him and ran to Nahari, using her keys to let him out of his cage. "What are you doing here?" Nahari lifted Madison to the air before kissing her deeply. "I wanted to save you," Madison giggled. "I'm very grateful to be your damsel. But now, we must leave the castle." Nahari rushed ahead. "We can't leave without Katara," Madison cried out. Nahari threw Madison over his shoulder and snatched Oat by the hand. They have torn away into a different dimension and spit outside the castle in a mere second. Nahari breathed deeply as the teleportation took a chunk out of his energy. Madison helped Nahari to his feet, realizing he had been right. The drawbridge sat lowered, and they could see people thrown out of the castle into the moat below, as the hungry alligators feasted on those who opposed Myra's reign, or a more insidious enemy had already taken advantage of the castle's weakness. Madison lifted Nahari under her arm, and Oat took up the other, while walking for a while until making camp at the camp's rear, far from the chaos and torchlights. Chapter 10. Inside the castle courtyard, Catherine and Katara sat unaware of the violence inside the castle. Katara waited patiently as Catherine prayed. Katara tried being polite but couldn't help but yawning as Catherine had spent half an hour in prayer. "God is telling me we must flee now." Catherine stood up abruptly. Katara helped her, letting out a long yawn. "I think the High Priestess is nice, but she isn't God, Catherine." "I don't worship God. I believe in the one true God. I pray to the Almighty Creator, not a creation." Catherine couldn't contain her contempt at Katara's condescension. "You Piers type are always such tight cunts. You know what? You're supposed to be for the people. Instead, you're all high and mighty, wiping the asses of the rich and noble," Katara accused. Catherine snapped her fingers, creating a black fire in the palm of her hands. "I suggest you choose your next words wisely. You have no idea what I can do to you." Katara cracked her neck, stretching out her 5'3" frame, then hopped in place as Catherine launched her ball of black fire. Katara delicately cartwheeled away, then hit a front tuck, hovering over Catherine's head. Catherine raised her hands to defend herself. Katara stood on Catherine's shoulders, looking down at Catherine. "Who's high and mighty now?" Katara dropped herself down to sit on Catherine's shoulders, wrapping her legs around her neck as she dropped her own body to the ground, tossing Catherine a few feet away. Catherine got up slowly, recalculating her strategy. "How the hell did you do that?" "I can teach you if you survive," Katara giggled, holding out her hand to help Catherine. "Please do. I guess I could have been more tolerant." Catherine takes the help, brushing herself off, pretending this didn't just happen. "You can show me some damn respect. I hate how you noble bitches act. Test me again and you'll see why I'm not the one. Especially not today. I need to find my prince," Katara confirmed, marching back into the castle. "Your prince?" Catherine asked curiously. "Well, yeah, I'm done with this place. I'm going to Ekru." Katara started heading out to the courtyard back into the castle. Catherine walked after her and Katara stopped short, holding her arm with the other hand to her lips. They peered around the corner, seeing blood through the hallways, guards and servants dead in the hall. The young woman heard the fighting further up the hallways. Both quickly ran in the opposite direction until heading back to the courtyard. Catherine and Katara sprinted until they hit the moat. Katara leaped without Catherine. Katara flipped clear across the 12-foot wide gorge without breaking a sweat and continuing to sprint. Catherine huffed as she remembered Nahari's book of spells and ethereal techniques. Catherine made steps out of thin air, delicately stepping across her bridge before the bricks disintegrated from which they came. Catherine turned from the other side, looking at the castle she had called home for so long. You could see the fires beginning in the court, and near the front gates were legions of peasants, serfs, farmers, and a makeshift army in leather armor, screaming for entry. Catherine held her breath before she knew it. She had disappeared. Catherine looked around herself at the vacuous space around her. She was no longer on Earth at all. Catherine read about this morning, the source for the Earth's ethereal connection. The most capable ethereal benders can only reach this alternate space. Catherine tried walking. The substance felt almost like water. Instead, it's almost as if she had to swim while she walked until her body began to adjust. The longer she spent in the ether, Catherine grew tired until she fell over, passing out from overexertion.
hoping she wasn't dead. The castle invaded from the inside out. When several servants saw Orion push Demeter from the tower, or saw her body falling outside the building during their duties, they knew it was time to strike. The servants sent word to the village as the guards attempted to bring Orion to justice and keep up with Myra. The servants turned against them. The king and the high priestess were pulled from the dining hall as hostages. The castle filled with villagers taking up new residence. They planned for years the day they would enjoy the rich life. The serfs were rushing through the castle's halls, killing anyone they found going in to claim their rooms in the living quarters. Below, the villagers fought against the royal army led by a man named John Henry, the blacksmith's apprentice and a family man learning the trade to feed his wife and son. The ambush while the soldiers were drunk or occupied with Demeter's murder left the castle woefully undefended. Many soldiers weren't even aware of the invasion. The revolutionaries entered by the drawbridge, and the villagers had the numbers and determination to raid the kingdom, jumping the guards and holding them back, barricading the halls and doors, and taking control of the east entrance of the castle. While these men held back the guards, more villagers and swamp people piled inside the castle with their best weapons and armor. Behind them were caravans of carriages, horses, and pregnant women, walking behind the brigade seeking their promised spot in the castle. Each villager believed the castle belonged to them, and each would have a home in the stronghold by Graham Marco. The fight of the haves and have-nots waged on all night, forcing the guards back. The villagers and swamp men corralled themselves in the main hall and throne room, seizing control and shooting at anyone who popped their heads up. The fight went on all night until Meyer could call a retreat. Chapter 11. Demeter picked herself up from the ground, knocked unconscious from falling on the stony shore of the moat. Raw rage ripped her body from its broken state, ignoring her injuries and difficulty standing. She tossed her body into the water, floating along as she used the current to help her survey an excellent place to escape. Demeter wrapped her body into the waters of the moat. She was using her natural water element to raise her into the air onto the shore. Demeter's legs and neck felt broken, remembering the clearing falling on her skull. Here! Here! She needs help! A woman screamed, pointing at Demeter's wet, broken body. Her clothes were torn and worn. A group of men came to assess her injuries. They lifted her into the air, carrying her to the camp outside the castle wall. A medical group came to check on her wounds. Demeter faded out of consciousness, unable to handle the light or the pain. Still, she was alive. When Demeter awoke, Orion would suffer a fate worse than death. She dreamed of all the ways she would hurt and wound Orion. Her anger kept her heart beating. When Demeter awoke, it was morning time. She lay alone in a tent, dressed in a sheepskin dress, itching her skin. Despite her best efforts, she could not sit up beneath the casting covering her legs, keeping her on the ground. Only her neck was free, leaving her to breathe while her head rested on a pillow. "Oh, you're awake," the woman from the night before greeted Demeter. "Who are you?" "Folks call me Miss May, and I was the barkeep in the town until we moved in here." "What is here?" Demeter asked. "You must have been from inside the castle. Not surprised this poor thing like you doesn't know where you are right now. Probably never been outside the castle in your whole life, huh?" Miss May patted Demeter's forehead with a wet rag. "We're still at the castle?" Demeter coughed. "Yeah, dear. We took over the damn thing. I found you up on the shore. Looks like someone tried to kill you." "A soldier. The royal commander threw me from the grand tower." "I lived?" Demeter tried once more to sit up. The medicine man said you'll be in that thing all month, poor thing. Said it could take half a year until you fully heal. I offered to take you in. Most folks are worried about taking whatever they want from the castle, picking their rooms. I just know when all is said and done tonight, those boys will need a drink if you feel you can sit here and rest yourself. If not, I could find someone else to watch over you. Not many I would trust," Miss May recounted. "I can lay alone. I have a lot on my mind." "I got all day until then, sweetheart. You want to talk about it?" Demeter wondered if this woman would trust her if she knew who she was. "The princess," Demeter sighed, trying to find a way to tell her story. "Well, there was a man I worked with who was in love with me, but I never felt the same. A new man came in the castle, and I let him have me. I'm in love with this man now." Your ex-boyfriend tried to kill you? Miss May said as if she heard it 100 times before, sucking her teeth as she brushed Demeter's hair. The man from Ekra was so handsome. A man from Ekra was staying in my inn a few days ago. Said he was a prince. Nahari stayed in your inn? Demeter grinned. Yes, that was his name. He was a beautiful man. With such stories, I can see why you fell for a beautiful servant girl like you. Miss May teased. Demeter giggled at being a servant, relaxing as her hair was brushed, bringing her to a gentle sleep. If I were you, I would head home with that Ekra man if you could find him. Things are going to get worse here before it gets better. The castle can't hold the whole village, and there aren't enough beds. No one wants to be a servant, so the place quickly becomes a mess, and the people inside refuse to cook for themselves. Miss May let out a sigh. You mean there's already infighting within the revolution one day in? Demeter acts innocently. You talk very nice for a servant girl, Miss May notes. I wasn't a servant, I was a soldier, until the commander threw me out a window. Now I don't know what I am. You? A soldier? Miss May laughed, thinking it was hilarious. Demeter was noticeably perturbed, but had little ability to defend herself in any condition. She let out a deep breath and looked away. I'm sorry, dear. I changed your clothes. You look skinny as a pole. They don't look like they were feeding you much in there. Are you hungry, dear? Yes, ma'am, Demeter pleaded with her eyes and a hopeful smile. Oh, at least they taught you some manners. You have some nice teeth as well, Miss May noted. My mother always forced me to brush, or our maids hold me down when I was a girl. You had maids? I had an entire castle before last night. Can I trust you with a secret? Demeter asked. Probably not. I am a barkeep. I can only guarantee if it's a secret, I'll charge a good lot for it. Whatever they offer you, I can pay you better. Must be pretty good news, Miss May smiled. As Demeter looked up at May, she saw a woman. But May only saw Demeter's weight in gold the way May looked back. Demeter began laughing and snorting. May joined her laughter, waving Demeter away as if the girl were merely joking. May crossed the room where she was heating a few eggs and rashers of bacon. Demeter gladly had full use of her arms, allowing her to feed herself through moving her arm, though moving her arms too much caused great pain to her spine. Well, I do want to tell you a secret. Yeah? I think the prince got me pregnant. Letting a man do his business inside you? You're a bold girl. I don't know many virgins who allow a man to do that. You're pretty lucky to have a prince's bastard. He's not going to be a bastard. I'm going to be the queen. Demeter smiled as May set down the plate. You got so many dreams in your head, girl. I would too if I went flying out a window and hit my head. Miss May teased Demeter. It doesn't matter. The prince enjoyed himself yesterday, and I loved it. It was the best sex I've ever had. He felt so relentless. Do you know any way I can meet my prince again? I would be ever so grateful, Demeter swooned. Depends on whether he's with the king or the dead bodies. They took hostages who they thought would fetch a price. Not sure they would have known your prince and would have killed him. Might be a chance he escaped too, Maya suggested. No, not him. He's too good with people. I wouldn't be surprised if he weren't the one who started this revolution. Demeter shrugged. Grant Marco started this revolution. He's a madman from Swaplands. He comes to town weekly to trade, drink, and buy a few kegs for his people. Good man, mostly. He hated the royal family and been planning this his whole life. Why, mostly? Well, the first time Marco came into town, it's like he was scouting it. He always has his sons with him. One is bigger than a house, smart too. The other is small and dim as a doorknob, slobbers on himself, but can shoot anything from any distance. The best damn shot I've seen since his dad. Well, he went from coming maybe once a year or every few years to showing up every month. Then his people began settling closer about 10 years ago. No one said anything, but those swamp folk grew quick and big. This year we had swamp folk moving into the village. Now, this shit here, Maya explained. Do the villagers hate the royal family or the swamp people? Demeter asked curiously. I don't think these young boys should be dying over a tiny castle. They were expecting the castle to be the size of a whole city. It's sad when you think all these people thought they could share one castle. Damn near burned it down last night fighting against their army. May explained the villagers' situation. Demeter chewed on a piece of bacon as she held back her offense at her castle being called tiny. To save face, she empathized with the woman. Demeter patted May's knee and gave a comforting smile before returning to her fried eggs. May continued lamenting. That damn Graham came and insulted the men. His men were raping and getting women drunk. Then when confronted, he egged them on, saying they would serve him instead of a king like Umberto if they were real men. Some of the men then went off and believed them. Why did you come? Well, I had to follow my clientele. Say what you want about Graham, that man pays us tithe, as he calls the taxes. Rallied all the men, saying that they've been paying their tithe too long, and it was time for the royals to pay theirs. I think Graham just got tired of stewing in that swamp, May fumed. So he wanted to be king. I can understand his desire. But a good king must take care of all their people. Are there any swamp folks in the camp? The women and children are back home in the swamp, far from here. Our village all came to fight. Marco said it would get trampled before any other kin got touched. The men are at the castle, picking up their breads and fighting anyone who says otherwise. Some of our men too, but many people got locked outside the gates after the night. They said it's not enough room. I have an idea. Suppose I can take out a loan for a few kegs of your cheapest beer. Bring these to the villagers outside the gates. Tell them that Graham betrayed them and is trying to take the castle for himself. And anyone who disagrees doesn't get their drink. Rile them up. Get them drunk enough to storm the gates, but not too much so they can still fight, Demeter instructed. May rubbed her chin. We're talking about 100 shillings of ale here, girlie. I don't ever think I met a soldier with that much gold to give away. I am a soldier. I didn't lie to you, but I am Princess Demeter. Before I told you, I had to make sure I could trust you. Tell them it isn't from the king or the high priestess. Tell them it's from their princess who wants to see an end to the bloodshed and is willing to negotiate peace, Demeter declared. If I help you, and you are the princess, all 100 shillings will do is replace my kegs. What do I get out of this, huh? That's my reputation on the line. May crossed her arms over her chest. If your reputation is worth what you think it is, you'll stay by my side until I recover. You'll get 10 shillings daily until I'm at 100% health. Well, of course you can run your business, and I'll give you the lump sum at the end of my recovery. Demeter offers. If this works, I might have a thing or two wanted from you, little girl. I like how you negotiate. Alright, I'll fix up my wagon and bring them the drinks. I'll need a lot of cups, but I can make it work. May spit in her hand and extended it to Demeter. Demeter looked on in disgust, but realized how much it was worth in the long run to build her kingdom after the failure of her parents. If she can get the villagers on her side in this state, they would rally behind her to defend their territory. Life in the village would be refreshing after being inside the castles that, on certain days, smelled entirely of feces and urine until the chamber pots were all dumped into the moat. The outside smelled sweet and fresh. Each breeze went through the tent, cooling Demeter off despite her body castings. Demeter spits in her hand, feeling gross as she shook May's hand, but as the large woman hugged her into her bosom, she felt a warmth she hadn't felt her entire life. A lovely hug felt rather than sex or the judgments of her parents. Demeter purred, squeezing May back, and then released her as May hurried to prepare her wagon and donkey for the way to the castle gates. Demeter laid on her back, staring at the ceiling, reveling in her first genuine hug in years, if not since her childhood. The feeling of real love made her contemptuous in her life in the castle. The guards preyed on her and groomed Demeter for sexual favors in exchange for their loyalty. Her parents spent more time breeding the perfect soldier and ruler than acknowledging her as a daughter. Laying broken from a man she loved so dearly made her feel empty at the prospect of returning to the castle. She thought she wanted to be queen. Now she didn't want to release the freedom of being a meager villager. Chapter 12. While Demeter faced her revelations, the Hari was on the opposite side of the castle.
Oat spent the night regaling how he was treated, disrespected, and ignored, how no one helped him find his master. Oat appeared like a wolf, his fur was ethereal, and his silhouette appeared more like a cloud of smoke than a living being. Yet as a human, he seemed flesh and bone. Nahari's magic was strong, and it worried Madison as he planned to return to the castle. After Oat fell asleep, Madison and Nahari enjoyed each other's flesh. They were lying in one another's arms until the sun rose over the horizon. Madison awoke to the smell of rabbits and bird's egg cooking on the campfire. Oat was cooking as Nahari rested. "Good morning, Oat. Breakfast smells wonderful," Madison greeted, covering her body with a blanket. Oat was silent as Madison approached, stunned by her shape, curvy hips, and supple breasts. She attempted to hide. Oat blushed, stammering for a bit. You were the only one who was nice to me. So many humans, and someone as beautiful as you was the only one to care about my master." Oat would never forget her kindness and desperation, and knew it would have never found Nahari without her. "I think I love him," Madison confessed, knowing how silly sex made a woman feel afterward. Madison looked longing at Nahari, knowing in his heart and mind she was simply a foolish girl warming his bed, until he returned to his queen to meet her. Her feelings were genuine as far as she knew, though she felt men like him get around often. Tying him down seemed too big a task for her. "Master is a very horny dog. I don't think he's worth the effort." "Hey, I'm awake, you know." Nahari sits up as naked as the day he was born. Oat giggled, covering its eyes and looking away, staring at the sausage and eggs. "Breakfast smells delicious as always," Nahari whiffs. Oat went hunting early in the morning while Master and the nice lady were mating. Oat sought his master's approval. "Were you watching?" Nahari raised an eyebrow. Oat whimpered. "A little. And then I went hunting. Oat do good?" "Oat do good." Nahari rubs the giant wolf's spirit head. "You team seem close," Madison smiles. "Our souls are bonded for eternity. The other will always survive if Oat or I am alive. That's my familiar, my guardian spirit," Nahari elucidated. "How did you two meet?" "Oat was different then," Oat frowned. "What was Oat?" "Oat was a 50-foot dragon from the 5th century, breathing ice and summoning lightning, and Oat was rich, so rich. Then this man comes with 50 other men and couldn't beat Oat, so they sealed Oat in a crystal." "And Nahari found the crystal?" "Well, I killed the man who had the crystal. I haven't a real clue who found it, and I unlocked the crystal's power. I was sucked into the crystal and indeed found a 50-foot dragon, wounded, even after so long. Oat didn't eat Master. Oat learned how powerful man could be, and Oat was scared of Master's energy. Well, long story short, I healed the dragon instead of cutting its head off. I felt like I had spent an eternity inside that crystal, trying to find our way out. Oat promised if I could find a way out the crystal, it would submit its life to me." Nahari rushed it along. "Master used the ether, and only the strongest humans can use the ether. The oldest bloodline before dragons came to be the first people. Oat has served Master ever since," Oat smiled. "So, why a fox?" Madison asked. "Well, Oat was never really a 50-foot dragon. It is as it is now. Oat can shapeshift and do amazing things, and it is very worthy in combat. That is why I am entrusting you with Oat." Nahari confirms. "What? But Master," Oat retorts. "I don't want to go with this girl thing. She's too nice. She scares Oat. What is she plotting?" Oat accuses. "What? I thought we were friends." Madison throws her hands up. "Oat only cooked enough for Master. Oat doesn't eat. And Master is sharing his food with Madison. So you'll protect her while I sneak back into the dungeon." "What? Master, are you crazy?" Oat shouts. "I need to leave my goodbye present to this wonderful royal family for imprisoning me. We have the keys to the castle. I found back entry while exploring the castle. I can even teleport inside without using too much energy. I'm going to free all the prisoners." Nahari had already decided, and there was little convincing him otherwise. "I forgot this is the man who lived inside a crystal for 100 years. Of course you are crazy," Oat sighs.
I'm not staying long, Oat. I'm gonna free those people and get right out, alright? Have some faith in me, Nahari chuckles. You never get right out. You linger and meddle, then make other mortals' problems your own. You aren't going to survive this, Nahari, Oat argues. Are you coming with me? Nahari asks as he stretches out his hand. Alright, I'll take the girl thing. Maybe I can learn a new form you enjoy more. Oat turns his head to the side. Nahari pets his head as Madison looks unworried. What? You're scared too? Nahari asks. Why would you free the prisoners? We're already free. We can go to the next village, maybe even further. But why go back in? Madison acts frustrated. You misunderstand one crucial thing. Our lives were never theirs to enslave. You two are going to the next village. I will meet you both there in one piece without having to cheat death. Oat calls you master. How is it any different? Madison asked. Oat asked for this, and Oat isn't going anywhere, Oat stated. Well, maybe you'll raise your kid if you don't die. Madison threw her hands up. You think you were a child? Nahari asked. Probably with you remaining inside, lingering and meddling until every last drop of you was inside of me. Now you want to commit suicide. I sure know how to pick them. I can see why your brother's going to be king. Madison began marching off. Excuse me. I will let you know I enjoyed myself with you, and if you truly are pregnant as Oat as my witness, I will raise my child. However, you will never get a new life. Bring up that man to disrespect me, nor demean me. If you are the mother of my child, I am going to show you right now the man I am. Nahari was gone without another word into the ether. That stupid, stupid, stupid man, Madison screamed. Hey, you're missing the best part, Oat smiled. What? What could be the best part? Madison quarreled. No, Oat can have master's sausage. Oat cheered, swallowing the 2 sausages whole. Madison fell to her knees, beginning to cry. Oat covered its ears at her wailing, refusing to ask what was wrong as it tried eating its eggs. Yet Madison continued and appeared to be getting louder. Oat doesn't understand the sound you are making. Master does not make this noise. Oat tries to shout over her tears. I'm sad, and you're like an emotional brick wall. Oat is a spirit. Oat has no emotions. Life is better that way. Emotions stop you from creating solutions. Instead of getting where you need to go, they keep you focused on what you cannot control. Oat was in the village this morning. Oat smelled these sausages, and Oat had to have them. Why do you call yourself Oat? I love oatmeal, and my real name is too hard for humans to pronounce, Oat explains. You love oatmeal? Madison laughs, wondering how anyone could love gruel. Yes, Master makes oatmeal with brown sugar, honey, or fruits, or nuts, or fruits, and nuts. Oh, and sometimes cream, or salt and pepper. Oat licked its chops, fantasizing about all the porridge awaited him when Nahari had returned. Madison questioned whether any of these stories could be true. However, watching the talking wolf eat the tiny egg, she suspended her disbelief. When Oat finished eating, it left the rest for Madison, heading ahead and walking to the village. Madison sighed, doing her best to eat while getting dressed before struggling after Oat's tremendous pace ahead. Luckily, Madison knew her way to the village better than anyone she knew. Madison found another makeshift camp and a pair of ribbons Katara often wore in her hair on the pathway. A rush of maternal emotions rushed over Madison as she lost sight of Oat's trail, beginning to track Katara's footsteps. Katara had been kilos ahead at the abandoned village, dragging Catherine's unconscious body through town, saying anyone to help her lift Catherine. Katara's arms felt as if they were about to fall off. She grabbed Catherine as she lay and began to explore the village, finding their homes and businesses abandoned. All that remained were their animals and a strange wolf sitting at the tavern drinking water from a glass. Katara blinked as there was no one there a moment ago. Katara saw no one enter in the village beside a strange-looking creature. Katara bustled around the bar listening, but the wolf was already aware of her presence. Do you feel lonely too, human? The wolf asked. No. I feel like I found a new village and wonder who's in my territory, Katara asserted. Oat's name is Oat, and who are you? Oat was excited, like a dog looking to be pet. Katara, why are you acting so strange? Katara sat at the bar next to Oat, reaching across the bar to grab the bottle of wine. Oat is drunk. Katara confronted the wolf with a pungent stench of potato liquor on its breath before checking the bowl to see it filled to the brim with alcohol. Master found a new mate, and Master is trying to free all the prisoners. Oat thinks Master is going to die. Then Oat will be lonely for all eternity, Oat continued. Katara rubbed her temples. So you came from inside the castle? No, I am from the fifth dimension. Oat saved Master from the dungeons. The dungeons? Are you Nahari's servant? Katara asked in excitement. Yes, the same. You are Master's mate as well? I wish, Katara sighed. Oat feels the same, but alas, Master tells Oat they have a working relationship which would make it awkward to mate together. Oat can be a woman if Oat wishes. Oat disappeared into a smoke of air, making Katara cough. As the smoke cleared, it appeared as a woman with luscious curves and full breasts. What are you? I am a woman-human creature now. Oat feels beautiful. Oat admires its body. You look like Madison, Katara mused. Yeah. Oat was supposed to escort her here, Oat confessed. What? We must find her before someone else tries to kidnap her or bring her back to the castle, Katara shouted. Oat groaned. You're not Oat's master. Oat is going to mate with Master, then all of you will be gone. Oat, Madison is my friend, Katara replied. Fine, Oat will help you, but you will help Oat. I'm not helping you have sex with Nahari before I've even had sex with him. Besides, if you're from the fifth dimension, why not have any cutie from there to be with you, Katara convinces. Oat thinks you just want Master for yourself. Oat will find your friend alone so Master isn't angry, and that is the only reason why. Oat turned into a hawk, quickly flying out the tavern on its way. Katara shook her head at the drunk shapeshifter, realizing competition for Nahari's wasn't worth her stress. She set her eyes on the village, seeing she was dragging Catherine into the tavern, laying her on one of the booths unseen by anyone who may enter, then locking down all the windows and doors to keep everyone out. She explored the tavern well enough to see a secret hatch leading to a stash of food supplies and a wine cellar, down a more pronounced set of stairs. Katara fixed herself a hearty breakfast, saving enough for Catherine and Madison if she ever arrived. Katara sat alone, reading a book containing how well the bar had been performing over the years, enamored by her new business's numbers, expenses, and profits. Oat returned within the hour, carrying Madison on its back, dropping her off at the door and returning to its bowl of homemade potato vodka. Katara, you're safe, Madison rushes to greet her, hugging her tight. Oat slinked away on its own, curled into the corner, whimpering itself. Katara and Madison whined at how adorable the wolf looked, crying over its master being away. Oat, can you do me a favor and keep patrol of the village? We need you to keep us safe. You need Oat? Oat's head poked up, its tail wagging a bit faster. Please, for me. Katara poured actual water into the bowl for Oat. Oat bowed its head, slinking away alone on its own. Well, that didn't go well at all, Katara noted. I don't think you trust any human but Nahari. Oat told me his story. Humans have ruined his life. Now it's a spirit, Madison explained. At least it's keeping watch. How did you escape? Katara asked. He teleported us out of the dungeon. Oat and I came to save him, and then he returned to free the prisoners. He told us to come to the village and wait for him. Madison took a seat, jumping when she saw the body lying down. Where am I? Catherine rubs her head and sits up. Katara's Tavern and Grill. Katara speaks first, claiming the building. You're the maid from the castle. How did I get here from there? Catherine felt her body and waved around the air, realizing she was back in the material plane. Well, we escaped the courtyard, don't you remember? Katara gave her a cup of water. Thank you. 1 penny, please. Katara smiled. What? What do you mean 1 penny? Catherine gasped, setting the cup down immediately. I was going to say 1 shilling, but I'm trying to be nice. A girl has to make a living. Katara rolled her eyes. Are you all right? You look frazzled. Madison rubbed Katara's back as the woman came to her senses. I was in the ether. I was in a different world, and now I'm back here on Gaia. I thought I had died. Catherine gathered her thoughts, taking a deep breath and relaxing for a moment, accepting she was alive. You can teleport too then, like Nahari. Is he here? He was going to train me to use the ether, but everything happened so quickly. Catherine acts hopeful. He teleported back in the castle to free the prisoners. Madison was disappointed to announce, is he crazy? Those people are murderers and rapists. Why would he set them free? Catherine held her head. Well, those men could die themselves if the villagers kill everyone. No one would know they're down there at all. I was angry with him initially, but walking to the village gave me time to consider. I saw the army camped right outside the gates. I could hear the people shouting to get inside the castle. It was more than I could handle. I doubt those people would find the dungeon, let alone free the prisoners. Some of the prisoners are servants whose only offense was not cleaning quick enough, or not giving some random lesser lord the courtesy of a king. Not every prisoner is guilty. Madison shook her head. Catherine was unmoved by the sentiment. Well, I think it's a bad idea. You don't see me with him. I'm here following his instructions. Madison shrugged, unsure what more she could say. Did you find a prince yet? 'Cause I can see you eyeballing the water, Katara speaks up. Catherine groans, checking her body for her coin purse, realizing she hadn't brought anything. Catherine screamed, wishing she was back in the castle to get her belongings. Chapter 13. Inside the castle, tensions are high. Inside the throne room were Grand Marco and his swamp folk. In the castle's core below were Myra and all the soldiers and guards she could rally together. The bloodshed had stopped as she withdrew her forces, collecting soldiers and giving servants weapons. Myra let the early morning set in, hearing the shifting and ease of the enemy below, seeking a good moment to reveal themselves and strike when the guard was lowest. Nahari was running from cell to cell, attempting to free as many prisoners as possible. Nahari came to a cell and asked 3 questions. Do you want your freedom? The answer was typically yes. Why are you here? Followed by a brief or an elaborate story to be checked by his last question, as Nahari turned his attention to the prisoner's neighbor. Is he lying to me? No matter how narrow the lie, those who felt the third question remained in their cage to die. Nahari left with a centurion of 100 men, trailing behind him as they made their way out the dungeon seeking an exit. Above them, Myra was firing up the soldiers to battle. Myra felt better harnessing her power than her victimhood as she marched up and down the columns of her troops. This is our castle, and these dirty bastards have marched in and caught us off guard. We haven't even buried our princess, and these men attempt to make our home their property. Are we going to stand for this offense? Myra rallied. No, ma'am! Their shouts rumbled the castle's walls. Are we going to bow down to these peasants? Myra called. No, ma'am, the soldiers responded. Are we going to go up there and kick their asses? Myra demanded an answer. Yes, ma'am! Hoorah! Hoorah! The soldiers began stomping and shouting. Firebenders and mixed units with me. The water unit is waiting for our signal. Move out, Myra led the charge, taking point and running up the stairs. Grand Marco sat on the throne, satisfied with himself as he sharpened his hunting blade. Hey, Marco. Hey, boy. You feel that earthquake? A man wearing camouflage and leather asked. Relax, mouse. Your yellow belly is showing. You scared of a few shifting plates, boy? Marco drawled in a backwoods tang. Ain't no mouse, ain't scared. I'm saying there's a quake. Boy, you wanna sit pretty, then sit pretty. The man blows off Marco, heading to talk to the other men. Marco sucked his teeth, spitting out a brown glob of tobacco, licking his lips and standing up. Marco's wiry frame of a 140-pound man. He wiped his bloodied hands through his silver hair, getting into a slight trot, and then rushing forward at full speed. Marco tackled the man half his age over and stood over him. Who's sitting pretty now, mouse? Marco raised his hands into the air to the chorus of tired cheers. Marco looked around him, seeing men worn from the heat of battle, lacking natural sleep and on the edge, as his men kept themselves separated from the village's men. Marco's goal was to unify the two and kill the king to take the queen himself. His men seemed ready to implode. What the hell is that noise? Marco asked. I done told you there's an earthquake, the man screamed, his face red and embarrassed as he picked himself off the floor. Not your imaginary earthquake. There ain't never been a damn earthquake in Maya. And as your new king, I forbid any goddamn earthquakes. Marco barks. May's at the gates with beer, fellas. John Henry from the village called out, running to inform everyone. The village men rallied in cheers with revitalized spirits, with the talk of cold ale and a visit from May, whose family founded the village 100 years ago. May came into the throne room with a group of men carrying a keg for the men in the front lines. A specialty gift from Demeter from those who refused to betray their cause of Marco. Mays instructed the men to set up her pop stand with planks of wood and cups while John Henry and the men set up the keg. Wait. No, I didn't instruct no damn drinking. Now I know you Maybelline Emeritus to be one of the most selfish heifers I've ever fucking met. Who the fuck do you think you are swinging your weight in here? Marco fumed with rage as he marched up to the bar stand. Here you go, Marco. The first cup is for you. May says with a smile, passing Marco a foamy cup of ale. Oh, thank you there, ma'am. Let me take that little guy. Marco changed his tone, accepting the mug with a grin. Mayor and men began passing out drinks until the keg was empty, and the men were singing with one another, finally enjoying their victory. Marco sat on his throne, nursing the same glass of ale. His eyes never left May as he watched her get his men nice and drunk. He noticed his number dwindling as men began throwing down their banners and going outside towards the gates. Hey now, Maybelline, why are my men leaving? Marco asked in a sharp, inquisitive caw. More ale outside, May said simply. Why not bring the ale inside for my men? It's for the villagers caught up in their ego. This beer is from Princess Demeter. She wanted to give a gift to the villagers fighting for better treatment from the king, May explained. Marco spat out his dip. The princess is dead. The princess lives, and she believes you tricked the villagers into fighting your war for you to become the new king, May continued. Well, no shit, Sherlock. Who else is going to lead these goons to a greater civilization? Marco stood up tall, marching out towards the gates. He was pelted with empty cups, chatting around him as he approached until he retreated to the throne room. The gates opened wide for the villagers inside to get their free ale. There was no stopping the men from pursuing Marco as he rushed to the throne room, chased by younger men calling him a liar and murderer. Seeing the walls lined with their dead brothers and fathers, Marco got into the throne room, demanding the doors be shut, but unable to stop the angry drunk villagers from corralling them together. Pretty soon the swamp man surrounded the patriarch, blocking the way from getting to Marco. Where are all the damn rooms you promised, Marco? You said this place was a damn city. We gotta go back to the damn village, the villagers barked. I ain't know there wasn't no damn space, boy. I wanted to get in the motherfucker first. Marco shouted back from behind his sons, grandsons, and great-grandsons protecting him. Why do your men get all the rooms first while our men are dead? My men were the better fighters, Marco declared. Oh, is that right? The villagers challenged, beginning to close around the leather-clad men. The swamp men had their nets and spears in hand. The natural order kept the village at men at distance as the smell of rotting fish and mold collected. The swamp feared killing every last villager in the room, people who looked down upon them for centuries as they wallowed in the swamps. Hunting and gathering survive. Marco raised them on tales of villagers coming to pluck up swamp people like they were hunting dogs. If the village men wanted a fight, it was one the swamp men had dreamed of for years.
Boys are being manipulated. We lost kin too. We bled over this. No one is gonna say that Marco ain't a fair man. Graham barked and screamed to keep the men at bay. We split the castle and the power down the middle. John Henry suggests, getting between both groups. You all take the king and go to the castle's east side. Do as you please. We gonna take the queen with us and make us a new brood to the west, alright? Marco said. You'll get nothing and like it. Attack the men. Myra screams aloud, raising her hands and raising a plume of flames to anyone before her. The smoking furniture, cloth, and flesh covered the experience of firebenders of the Royal Army in smoking kindling. Adept at fighting under and using their control behind the firebenders came a stock of earthbenders and airbenders. The swamp gave excellent resistance, creating a wall of mud between Myra's army and their men, while the rest gained their bearings, getting on their armor and finding a weapon still drunk from the ale. May made her way out, leading all, unable to fight back to the fresh air. The royal army fought the men out of the throne room, only to find the most had escaped under the cover of smoke in the wall. Myra snorted, wanting to have them all killed in a single blow. Now her prey had scattered throughout the castle. She heard rumors of soldiers ambushed in the swamp and expected a fair fight against one of the most cunning men alive.
Grand Marco tactically retreated, spreading his men through the hall, ready to strike whoever exited with a barrage of arrows. Graham had his bow knocked, waiting for anyone to poke in their head. Through the hall he heard a rumbling, shouting and screaming as a fleet-footed Ecru man came sprinting, followed by a centurion of men in tow. In tow were the Royal Army's water-bending, surfing through the halls on a tsunami, meant to drown the men running for their lives. "Goddamn red heron. Back up, boys. Get out through the gates and set up. Sweet! Let's back it up!" Graham called out, bolting away with all those who were still following his command. All those who remained were washed up in the waves, filling up the hallways to the ceilings, leaving no room to escape. Myra had her earthbendings ramming down the doors of the throne room, unable to get out due to the water's pressure. The prisoners who could swim did so as quickly as possible. Attempting to seek air as the Royal Army sliced through them like butter, moving through the water as if it were air. Nahari opened a hole in time-space, letting out the water, saving himself and losing a quarter of his men as they tried to regain themselves. The prisoners were tired of running, turning on their captors who would have to recharge before they could salute the halls again. The prisoners unleashed waves of fire as others used stones beneath the army's feet to root the legion of men. Even though 75 men fought against 1,000, they did so relentlessly. Fear wasn't an option, and death was already their only option. Now these men chose life. Nahari moved the men aside, covering his eye for a moment, then staring at his eyes for a moment, then staring at the army with crimson red eyes, putting the entire legion asleep with a single glance. The doors erupted as more members of the royal military poured out of the throne room, with more marching from the castle's core spilling through the prisoners. Nahari maneuvered through the crowd, finding himself in the throne room alone, and looking around until he found the king and queen tied up, gagged, and bounded. "You again," Myra snorted. "My dear, how have you been?" Nahari greeted with a charming smile. "What are you doing out of your cell?" Myra gritted her teeth. "This is why you wanted me locked up. Was this your plan all along?" Nahari questioned, strolling closer to the king and high priestess. "Stop right there. If you touch a single hair in their heads, I will destroy you," Myra warns. "You're so beautiful when you're angry," Nahari muses. Myra blushes, looking away for a moment, to find Nahari, the king, and the high priestess all gone in a blink of an eye. Even if she wished to be sad with the rulers gone, it meant this was indeed her castle, and the fight for it became all the more worthwhile as she emerged from the throne room feeling victorious. Myra's men struggled against the prisoners. The prisoners held their own against hundreds of men simultaneously. With their combination of abilities, the Water Brigade was left unable to fight as the more experienced prisoners began tearing through novice benders who hadn't gotten proper training due to the dominant water culture of Maya. The prisoners were from around Gaia, learning the deadliest and most dangerous techniques known to man. Maya cared nothing for what a man had to learn after what Orion attempted to do to her. She thanked him because she fought, knowing that this man would rape even of her corpse if she fell. Myra faced off alone against the prisoners, raising her blade. The prisoners flung a giant boulder at her. In a flash, Myra waited. No, she hadn't. As the boulder fell into two pieces, the men who threw it impaled by her blade on the wall. They realized she went through the boulder, slicing it clear in two. Myra withdrew her sword in turn, firing herself like a rocket into the next man. The prisoners had no response but to run as the numbers became depleted, in mere seconds faster than anyone could react or even realize she had moved. Myra left after images from sheer speed, chasing down the escaping prisoners at a pace her soldiers couldn't keep up with until they reached the gate. Grand Marco spotted many of his relatives in the shuffle of prisoners. "Let him through, boys," Marco commanded as the prisoners passed. Graham had only to catch a glimpse of Myra cutting through his youngest son as if he were a slaughtered pig. Marco coldly took a deep breath, firing an arrow, slicing Myra's ankle, slowing her down more than she expected as the Marcos assailed Myra with arrows and bolts, pinning her to her back as she gasped for air. Men came in, trampling over her body, unable to stop their momentum as they were too peppered down with arrows. Fighting for their lives with ice shields and walls, the swamp folk dematerialized any stone structure they attempted to make by turning the material into a puddle of cement with their swamp style of earth and water bending. The Royal Army had numbers beyond the Marcos family's capability. Without the villagers take the bulk of the damage as their fodder, they couldn't fire fast enough to stop the men rushing them down with shields and swords.
The fighting turned into a melee brawl as men punched and cut down anyone not wearing their colors. Until the gates opened, they were flooded with villagers in a drunken rage, fighting anyone before them, catching the prisoners, soldiers, and swamp men off guard, too busy fighting one another to defend themselves against the fresh combatants. And to the advantage of the villagers, they didn't care who they fought. They were all their enemies. The villagers were a mixed group of benders with great synergy from working and living together for years instead of attacking individually. The villagers held themselves back, striking as groups, and the clever ones focused on utilizing the abilities of the soldiers or prisoners against them. "Yo! Hold on, yo!" Marco screamed. "Hold your arms, men," Houghton called out. "Too many of us has died. You done killed 2 generations of Marco boys. Cease fire," Marco demands. "Fuck that shit," a villager calls out, throwing his dung in Marco's face. The villagers went on to a full-on attack, taking advantage of the unarmed men and lowering the guard. Grand Marco spit out a mouth of crap, sneaking off the battlefield, left to abandon his family. He wouldn't fought boldly against the prisoners as he watched the men around him fall. Myra tried to pry herself from the ground, only to get stabbed through the skull by a swamp man. "Enough!" Houghton roars. Everyone paused for a moment to the new voice taking command. "No more Mayan blood will fall today. Can we please resolve this peacefully?" Houghton asked. "Fuck that shit!" The same villagers shouted, trying to get a rally, only to be punched square in the jaw by a swamp man. "No more, boy. We can't afford to lose more men over this hovel. I'm taking my boys back to the swamp." Graham poked his head, trying his best to wipe the human fecal matter from his grizzled face. For what? To come back and try it again? John Henry dared. The villagers are numerous as more villagers made their way inside, surprised and trying to pause the fighting. The villagers filled the room surrounding the swamp men and remnants of the royal army. The servants joined the villagers. John Henry looked at Houghton square, ready to tell his men to end it once and for all, so no swamp man could ever raid their village, and the king could stop his taxes, and then be done with them all. Houghton held his blade up high for all to see before the sound of steel clattering on the floor. Soon men from all sides began dropping their swords too. Houghton tore off his cape and tossed his helmet to the floor, leaving the room, disrobing from his armor until nothing remained but his undergarments as he left the battlefield. Unbeknownst to Houghton, legions of other men followed after him. Leaving the fighting, the gates had cleared out and the mob of people had returned to the village. Houghton took a fresh breath of air, looking over his shoulder and refusing to return to the castle after all he had witnessed. The battle in the court against the prisoners had lost him half his men. The eyes of the man from Ekru took on another significant number. Houghton was tired of the bloodshed. Grand Marco hadn't been far behind Newton, hobbling around in exhaustion and sprinting out of the castle's gates as best he could. Houghton then saw Myra, dragging her body. Behind her was a room of dead bodies, all of those who dropped their swords and hadn't made it out quick enough. Her wounds and armor slowed her down, but she did not stop her chasing after them. Houghton and Marco ran as fast as they could. Houghton glanced to see Myra pounce on Graham like a cheetah, tackling Marco to the ground, both spinning out of control. She retrieved the sword deep inside of Graham's guts and locked eyes with Houghton. Both moved in exhaustion as Myra chased after Houghton. Houghton looked over his shoulder to see Myra hysterically limping toward him as the distance between them and the castle grew, with nowhere to turn for safety. "It's all finally mine, Houghton." Myra looked up with a crazed smile as she aimed her hand at him. "Myra, don't do this. We don't have to fight," Houghton demanded. "It's not a fight if you don't defend yourself." Myra lunged forward, burying her sword deep inside of Houghton's chest, dropping him to the ground as she threw all her weight into taking the larger opponent down. Houghton's chest heaved up and down until Myra covered his nose and mouth, pressing down with all her might. She was laughing as Houghton tried gouging out her eyes. She shook his hands off her face, standing over him and relieving herself all over his face as he died. Now no one stood in the way of her taking over the castle. Grand Marco is dead. Houghton and the commander of the guard is dead. Orion, dead. Demeter, dead. No one remained to stop her from what she had to do. Myra carried herself back into the castle. The men remaining were scared to death. The swamp men, villagers, and many Roygarde had held a ceasefire, trying to find peace. She gained total control over the castle as the senior ranking member of the military. Today, men, we fought a difficult battle, and it has won us the war, Myra declared. The men cheered half-heartedly, standing amongst thousands of dead bodies massacred in the hall. Their family members and friends lay killed around them, never to return. Their bodies were mangled and mutilated, some beyond recognition, and in the middle stood a woman ready for more. They bowed their heads, falling to their knees before Myra. I am the new high priestess of Maya. I am your war goddess, and we will claim this entire region in my name, Maya roars. Myra looked around her to the silent mouths. She let out a sigh before taking a deep breath, then releasing a massive flame, lighting the entire room and everyone inside on fire, leaving them all to burn as she walked into her new castle. Unable to see the bloodshed and dead bodies, only seeing the hall she walked every day, hoping it would be hers one day. Myra lost herself in the castle, taking refuge in a high tower with a few servants she took as hostages. She led them where no one would look for her until she fully recovered. In a way, they sympathized with her, hearing of what Orion had done and attempted. In truth, they feared her more than death, witnessing her kill all the men left standing from the battle who hadn't escaped outside. Myra rested until she felt herself coughing. She opened her eyes to see darkness, unable to breathe or fight back. Myra felt hands all over her and the softness of the goose feather pillow over her face as the servants held her down, suffocating her, using all their strength and will to hold down the most powerful woman, knowing if Myra got up, they were dead. Myra struggled and gasped, dying from asphyxia as she choked on the feathers. Her body finally stopped. The servants fled, knowing the woman's spirit would haunt the tower. Chapter 14. The servants gathered together, realizing most of them had hidden during the fighting and revolution. None of them had died or gotten injured. They helped each other, thanks to be alive, planning for themselves what would be next. The cooks began cooking dinner. The butlers and maids took to piling the bodies in the front gates, even retrieving Myra's body from the tower, and the bodies from the field. By the time their royal feast was ready, a bonfire was burning, and all those who died senselessly fighting for their brethren. The butlers and servants returned to the royal dining hall as they had been the night before, eating their fill and enjoying themselves the best they could. None would ever be able to forget the massacre that took place, and none wanted to repeat such atrocity. Weeks passed by before the castle was thoroughly cleaned and returned to normal. The former servants had grown bored with their routine and regrettably felt directionless. Without much literacy or governance, they found themselves repeating their old patterns and habits, and feeling bothered by how unfulfilled their lives had become without meaningful labor. Their lives became arbitrary. It was no longer a castle for a royal family and the governance of Maya. It was a burial ground for all those they had ever loved. Most of the servants planned to leave to go to the village. If there was no room, they could continue on their way to find a new home as farmers. Each took more gold and ornaments than they could hope to sell. The senile and mentally destroyed stayed behind, cleaning the castle, scrubbing the floors, and cooking, believing one day the king and high priestess would return to punish anyone who was not working as they typically did. The weeks were easy as Katara had done her best to learn under Miss May. She campaigned as the village's mayor. As a bartender, she was quickly warming people's hearts and speaking boastfully about improving things for the villagers. Even the eldest Marcos would come listen, trying his best to mend times between the swamp and the only nearby village for kilos. Madison and Nahari kept their distance, and Nahari's time nursing Demeter became his full-time focus. Madison felt a bit lost in the mix as his attention shifted so drastically, finding it hard to believe they could feel so deeply for one another. His relationship with Demeter even brought smiles from the king and high priestess. The royal couple sits alone, humbled by the hospitality and mercy of the villagers. Demeter had regained use of her legs, but her strength was slowly returning. She was with Nahari by the creek, leaning against him as he led her across the rocks. He seemed to find every sturdy rock possible, while Demeter felt was slime beneath her toes. They walked through a beautiful meadow of flowers, laying in each other's arms as they watched the sun rise together. Demeter had asked him too much about the castle. She could see in his eyes it left scars on his psyche to have witnessed such violence, and how casually he handled his recovery. It wasn't the first time he had felt such pain or had seen a battlefield. Demeter rested her head on his chest, never seeing war stepping foot in the castle to see its horror. She was grateful for how the bards recounted the tale. Demeter kissed Nahari on his cheek, rubbing his cheek to see if he was awake after the trek through the Maya landscape. Demeter looked down at his face and wondered if he was playing with her and falling asleep. "Did your side win in the castle that day?" Demeter asked. "I had no side," he yawned, not opening his eyes. "So who won?" "I left with your parents before the end of the battle. I didn't come here to kill Mayans or be involved in a battle. I found myself in the middle of it. Everyone seemed to believe deeply in what they were fighting for, and in their side's victory, yet so few are left." Nahari lamented. "So you are the sensitive type." "I am a man of the most sensitive species on Earth. Men believe we have egos or prides. We're human. I felt like you do. I want to end the violence. Yet the violence seems to find itself everywhere." "I understand what you mean, my love." Demeter bit her lip. "Do you now?" Nahari sat up, looking Demeter in her blue eyes and kissing her deeply. Demeter lifted her dress to reveal she was naked beneath. Giving little resistance as she freed Nahari's cock from his silk pants. Demeter lowered herself onto him. She couldn't help but moan as every inch disappeared up in her belly button. Feeling full, she tried lifting herself. Her walls had tightened so much in her recovery, she couldn't let go of his cock. Nahari felt the difference as well, feeling as if he was her first. As he lifted her chin, Demeter rolled her hips into his, keeping him deep inside as they kissed tenderly. Slowly exploring each other's bodies, Demeter began moving faster, moaning louder until she felt herself squirt. Nahari couldn't contain his excitement, pinning Demeter to her back. Demeter wrapped her legs around his waist, arching her back as Nahari rose, grinding her hips and pounding harder inside of Demeter. "Oh God, Nahari, don't stop," Demeter begged, screaming it repeatedly, watching as he moved like a man possessed with his unyielding pleas. Their skins cut viciously against one another as he forced himself deeper, pressing his dick against her womb as he released his seed. Demeter held her breath as she felt his hot cum spill from her cervix down her labia. Nahari pulled out his dick, finishing up on Demeter's stomach. She rolled over on her back, waving her butt in the air. "You're gonna kill me," Nahari chuckled, sitting on his butt, trying to catch his breath. "I mean, last time you were incorrigible. I felt you inside me for a week afterward, and I thought about you every day." Demeter mounted his heart on, kissing his forehead as he lifted her dress over her head. "You're so beautiful, I can't help myself once we get started." Nahari bit her ear and then kissed her down her neck to her shoulder. "Can we stay longer? Once we return, we won't have that much time alone together," Demeter pleaded. "I was hoping you would stay with me forever." Demeter Katash Sabera. Nahari got very serious as he shifted his body, letting Demeter off him. Nahari stood on a single knee, reaching into his pocket, pulling out a golden ring with an emerald in the middle. Demeter gasped, seeing her birthstone, wondering how he knew. Demeter kissed him deeply, standing completely naked, hopping up and down as she tried on her engagement ring. Nahari wrapped his arms around her waist, holding her as the sun shone brightly on them. "Will you come back with me to Akru?" Nahari asked. "I don't think there's anything left for me in Maya now. Take me far away from here, and never force me away from your side." Demeter held his head as she leaned behind her, kissing him sloppily. The couple returned to the village hand in hand, to the entire village's excitement, seeing the enormous emerald on Demeter's finger. Catherine and Katara scoffed, unable to feel happy as the princess getting what she wanted. Though both were happy enough, Demeter lived after all the bloodshed. Both kept silent as the pair entered the tavern. They walked up to the king and high priestess, arguing furiously at the back of the tavern. "It's time to return to the castle, my dear. Every day I'm here, I see how desperately these people need my leadership to render their tithe." King Umberto stood up, his weight still supported by his portly frame. The priestess grew quiet before her laughter, remaining seated out of the simple life of farmers, masons, and vendors. No matter how she protested, the king insisted he didn't see his people living excellent without him or his taxes. "Mother," Demeter asked, "congratulations on your marriage. Are you going to Akru?" The high priestess smiled as her daughter joined her side, kissing her little girl's forehead. "Well, things seem fine here. I don't think the villagers return to rule after all they had lost. Such a thing would be a war crime, and they would kill us all." Nahari believed it unwise to stay as the royal family, but in Akru, we'll be welcome. "You too as well," Demeter offered. "I don't want to leave my people." The high priestess frowned. "We wouldn't have to leave them if we returned to our castle and took control," the king insisted. "Regardless of your choice, we leave in the morning. I pray you survive your hubris, my king, and your pride, my queen," Nahari offered before excusing himself from the family drama. Demeter sighed, caught between the two as she had been her entire life. As she watched her betrothed leave her alone with her parents, she realized she had no interest to continue being a pawn used against her father or God. Demeter stood up, bowing her head to wish her parents goodbye. "I pray you don't get yourself killed, father. Mother, I pray you find joy." Demeter kissed her father on the cheek, leaving them to catch up with the villagers and Nahari. Oat sat at the bar. "You're going to get killed, Umberto," the high priestess snorted. "And they will rape you in spite of me," the king retorted. The high priestess felt her ample breasts and curves, realizing he was correct. All of the villagers had attended church or given reverence to Bath. They looked only to the Creator for guidance and felt betrayed by the royal family. Their argument grew quiet as both settled on the idea of their daughter, and the ultimate weapon for protection would be leaving them to their mess. The royal family quieted down in their brooding, realizing as the villagers danced and enjoyed themselves they were no longer the king and queen. They had to adapt to find a place in this new society, because if they returned to the castle, so many soldiers have died, they wouldn't be able to protect themselves. Chapter 15. Katara settled and turned to her at the bar, forced to look at the royal couple, admitting to herself how adorable they looked as Demeter sat in Nahari's lap the entire time. The bards serenaded them, and the villagers celebrated their marriage before leaving for Akru. Even the swamp men brought along fish, for many of their men escaped prison because of Nahari. The entire village feasted to celebrate the young couple. Even the king and queen enjoyed their meals along with the common folk, forever changing how Maya was governed. Madison had been busy most of the day. She was staying in the hovel built by the villagers for her and Katara to share. Madison felt sick the entire day and couldn't figure out why. The resentment she felt was growing as the music played late into the night as she tried to sleep. Madison gathered herself despite feeling the flu, marching out to look for a doctor. And then she found Nahari and Demeter sitting in each other's arms. Madison sighed, poking Nahari's shoulder. "I need to talk to you." Nahari nodded, joining her without another word, following Madison around the tavern's back, where it was slightly quieter. Madison fluffed her hair, wondering how to tell him how she felt. "I felt sick all week, and honestly, I think I'm pregnant. I know it's yours. I don't want to ruin your wedding, but I will need you here." Madison held him, beginning to cry as she confessed, expecting him to be angry and vengeful. "Why don't you come with me back home?" Nahari offered. "Are you serious?" Madison covered her mouth, drying her tears, feeling overwhelmed with joy. "I don't want to be far from my child. I'm sure Demeter's her child as well. The kids can grow up together. I would hate to separate my family." Nahari kissed Madison's forehead. Madison never expected such an offer. Holding his arm as they returned to Demeter. As they attempted to explain the situation, Demeter held up her hand, saying she could already tell how Madison had been acting, and how she was glowing. After discussing his plan, Demeter wasn't happy but understood him wanting to keep his children close together. Demeter began to feel as if she had little say over the situation. The villagers treated Nahari as though he had lived there his entire life. In contrast, her parents feared leaving the tavern without their guards, only because no violence was allowed inside of the inn. She doubted they would be as welcoming to her if it wasn't for the beer. Nahari moved around freely, while many surviving nobles rarely drifted from the soldiers around them. Nahari spotted Catherine brooding on her own. "You didn't congratulate us on our wedding," Nahari noted. "I'm not happy for you." Catherine invaded his eyes, sulking alone as she watched everyone dance. "I'm sorry to hear it. Now where's my book?" Nahari reached out. Catherine swatted his hand away, stomping off. He sighed, looking behind him to see if Demeter had been watching. As the youth disappeared into the party, he followed Catherine, who walked to the field, pointing at the castle. "It's in my room, unless one of these fishermen took it, but you promised to train me. Are you going to run away to Acre now?" Catherine hazed. "You truly want to learn from me?" Nahari rubbed Catherine's chin. "I want you to show me you're worthy of being my king." Catherine wanted to cut him deep. "Come on. We're getting this book." Nahari grabbed her hand. "I can use the ether on my own," Catherine snapped. "Since when?" He extended his hand, stepping into the ether effortlessly. Catherine was mired in his ability. Without hesitation, she jumped in behind him. As he rushed to the castle, moving as if this substance was non-existent. Before she could faint, Catherine felt his hand on her waist, guiding her through the ether. "You have to use your mind to move. You have to see where you want to be, and the ether will send you. You do not have to force it or try to get there quicker. Simply see yourself inside your room, and it will be there," Nahari instructed. Catherine closed her eyes, trusting his words as she envisioned her bedroom surrounding them. While she opened her eyes, visualizing his father's journal, they appeared and she rose the journal up victoriously. Catherine held the journal close to her chest. Nahari grew close as he sat on her bed, sensing the energy signatures throughout the castle, realizing they weren't alone. "I don't think we're the only ones left here." Nahari grinned, rubbing his chin. "So you want to make love to me?" Catherine asked. "Not quite what I had in mind, but if you're offering, I had a better idea. And we can revisit what you want. Deal?" Nahari offered his hand. Catherine blushed. "I didn't say it's what I wanted. No, you want to be trained. So I will train you. What you will learn by doing if you want to learn. I will be your master. You'll listen to everything I say and not second guess me or backtalk," Nahari demanded. "You're not my fucking master." Catherine shoved him away, beginning to laugh at the idea. As she laughed, he lowered his waistband, slapping her in the face with his penis. She opened her mouth to yell, and he rammed his cock down her throat. Catherine gagged, begging for air, and he granted her request, pulling his dick out of her throat. Catherine gasped for air, catching her breath before once again he slid himself past her tonsils. Catherine relaxed her throat, moaning as he pulled out of her mouth. Saliva drooled down her cheeks, bracing herself from a return to her mouth. "Who am I?" Nahari demanded an answer. "All right, I'll listen to your master." Catherine submitted, pulling him back to her mouth, sucking the head of his penis, hoping he would rough her up more. Instead, Nahari put himself away, growing very stern. Nahari crossed the room, looking out the window at the view, spanning all the fields, meadows, and beaches, until the world disappeared into a dense rainforest separating the kingdom from the mainland. Nahari closed his fist, feeling his power in his body rattle the castle for a second before he relaxed. "Let's go, Catherine. It's time you fulfilled your destiny as an Acru elite. I understand what it means to be a conqueror." Nahari motioned for her to follow as he led the way into the ether. Catherine bit her lips, shrugging and following after Nahari into the throne room, where servants were cleaning and scrubbing in a daze. The flash of energy snapped even the most senile servant to sanity as they watched Nahari and Catherine appear from thin air before them. Nahari ignored their yelps and pleas as he marched to the throne. His hands crossed his leather cotton and cushions to see why the Umberto wished to return quickly. Nahari sat down on the throne, closing his eyes and taking a deep breath, satisfied with himself as he eased into the throne. "My king, my king, my king," the servants began cheering him on. Catherine bit her lip as she joined his side, sliding into his lap as the servants worshipped them, choosing Catherine and Nahari as their new king and queen, to serve the new royal couple without question or force. Nahari hadn't been surprised. The magic was the only life they had known, and grew tired of tyrants. In their bedroom, Catherine lay in Nahari's arms. She realized he wasn't sleeping. sitting up with his eyes open, thinking to himself. What's on your mind? Catherine kissed his chest, up to his neck, to his cheek. I decided to stay at Maya. We're going to be the new queen and king. The kingdom is at its weakest. You remain here now, and bring all those in the castle under the order. I will return after dealing with the rest of the royal family. You won't kill them, will you? Catherine asked, concerned. For you, I will not. Nahari confirmed as he walked through the ether, returning to the tavern. Chapter 16. Katara and May were closing down the tavern for the night when they saw Nahari enter. They both ignored him until he approached his in-laws. Suspicious as Nahari offered to take them back to the castle. He showed them his hand and only the king accepted. Katara blinked, opening her eyes to find the king and Nahari were gone. My queen, what happened? Miss May asked first, nervous about approaching. The Akroon came, saying he would take us back to the castle. My foolish husband couldn't wait to return. I must remain with the people, the high priestess elucidated. Instead, Nahari returned to Ekru, dropping the king of Maya before his father, the emperor of Ekru. Nahari bowed his head, crossing his arms behind his back as his father chuckled with pride. King Umberto lay paralyzed by transdimensional travel sickness. Nahari kicked the king Umberto in the skull, knocking him unconscious before awaiting his father's command. You've brought me this fat man. Why? Elderly Emperor Onyx Samara stood, taking his time as he left his throne. This is King Umberto of Maya. I've conquered his kingdom. I've taken his daughter, the princess, as my own, and the queen is defenseless and at my mercy. I've conquered Maya. With your permission, I'll return to enjoy my prize. Nahari kneeled as his father approached. I will find in this dungeon cell for this king. Thank you, my son. I'll put him with the rest of my collection of tyrants. Onyx mused, sending his son off to bring the king of Maya to his dungeon of other world leaders, former kings and generals who dared to abuse their subjects. Chapter 17. Nahari returned to the tavern moments later, beginning to walk out as if nothing had happened. But the high priestess grabbed his arm, stopping him. Nahari observed the high priestess's panic and gave her an easy smile. The high priestess followed Nahari, studying his every movement, until he led her to confront her in a quiet, dark area. The high priestess held her hard as she realized she was alone with the prince. Her heart was racing as he spun a blade in his fingers, waiting on her next move. What's up? Nahari's eyes glowed crimson red as he studied the matriarch of Maya. I want to know what you did with my husband, the high priestess accused. I took him to the emperor to face justice. You have no husband anymore. Maya has a new king, Nahari said without hesitating or deception. The priestess held her heart as she watched Nahari extend his hand, daring her to take it and face her justice. The matriarch looked away, walking to the edge of the building to see all the villagers enjoying their festivities. Then she returned to Nahari. I will stand by your side, the priestess offered. I'm supposed to be marrying your daughter. How could I even trust you? Nahari waved away the idea. She isn't the queen yet. I'm the queen, and I'm priestess. If you take me as your wife, I can still give you an heir, and the entire region of Maya without any bloodshed. She was kneeling before Nahari, pleading with him to spare her life. I could take you out right here. No one would know. I don't trust you enough to have you by my side, or on my council, Nahari rationalized. No one will understand Maya and its people better than I. Not my daughter. No one. Servants and maids surround you. My daughter is a child. Make me your queen and we can rule together. It isn't too late to end your wedding with Demeter. With Umberto, I was barred from leadership. So, I worked my way to becoming her priestess. I can help you, my king. Please be merciful. The priestess pulled down Nahari's pants, kissing the head of his penis to his balls, captivating the young man by watching the older woman fondle his family jewels. Nahari palmed on her words as the high priestess raised her tunica, revealing her youthful body and glistening skin. Nahari drooled over her body as he cautiously approached, exploring her and her reactions as he suckled her breast, his fingers pumping inside her bushy vagina. The priestess held hormones on her back, offering herself to the man who could have killed her without effort. Nahari nodded, confirming, like mother, like daughter, huh? The priestess smirked. I haven't laid with a man in a decade. Then why offer yourself to me? Nahari penetrated the high priestess, feeling her energy radiating as his hands ran across her flawless caramel skin. Have you not claimed Maya as your own? I know you have it in your mind. I'm Maya's guardian, and you are Ikaru's. Claim me, and your reign will bring peace. Our child will be all-powerful. I cannot fight you, but I can make love to you and advise you. If you rule, I will stand by your side. I must ensure I survive so Maya can be protected. Teresa pleaded as she remembered how it felt to be loved. High Priestess Teresa gathered Nahari between her legs, letting out soft moans as their tongues found each other's, tickling her clitoris as he thrust her from behind. Nahari held out his hand, confusing her, but she grabbed his hand and teleported back into the castle and more private quarters. The high priestess smiled in her queendom, feeling safer in its walls than being taken in public as a common whore. Nahari sat on the edge of the bed in meditative thought as the door opened, revealing Catherine. Queen Teresa. Catherine wondered why her queen was stark naked in Nahari's bed. Teresa sat up in shock, seeing her student enter and looking at Nahari. She smirked, waving Catherine to come join them on the bed. Catherine coyly walked over, sitting in Nahari's lap as Catherine watched her mentor. Teresa fingered herself from the bed. Nahari motioned for Catherine to get on her knees, and she followed his command, pleasuring him with her mouth, as he did the same for Teresa. The three took turns until Catherine and Teresa were alone on the bed, enjoying each other's feminine frame. Nahari stood to remove his clothes, watching the women kissing one another. Catherine sucked on Teresa's breast as Nahari mounted her from the back, penetrating Teresa while Catherine laid on top of her. Teresa dug her nails into Catherine's butt as Nahari picked up his pace, enjoying the view of the two women making love in front of him as his strokes punished Teresa. Catherine was enthralled between the two, unable to process, and Nahari pulled out of Teresa and into Catherine. Catherine whimpered, her body rejecting him as she rolled onto her back, giving him better access to her virginity. Nahari enjoyed both women until the two lay in exhaustion, leaving him wanting more. Teresa slept with her arms wrapped around Catherine. He decided to cancel his wedding later in the evening when Catherine and Teresa readily continued their love fest without jealousy, learning how to pleasure each other perfectly. Chapter 18. It took a year before a single villager or soldier came to inspect the castle, believing it to be a bloodied mess. Demeter and Madison remained in the village, protected by those around them. Meanwhile, Teresa and Nahari trained Catherine to reach her full power as a full-blooded Ikaru elite. When the armies arrived to reclaim the castle from the servants, they stood no chance against the two powerful etherbenders and the Guardian of Water. Demeter and Madison received refuge at the mothers of Nahari's children, yet Teresa and Catherine sat as his queens, ruling over Maya. Nahari ran the nation as its new king, giving no mercy to anyone who opposed his throne, and great blessings to anyone who supported his claim. Allies fled across Maya under his reign. Demeter was never touched by another guard or soldier, only offered herself to Nahari when he requested. Madison, no longer a maid, took up painting and playing instruments, as she had always dreamed of having a tutor come to her daily. After the death of Myra, Orion, and Hune, the princess lost interest in leadership, attempting to regain her peace of mind after so much loss. Demeter was not queen due to her mother's involvement, but remained princess, becoming the general of the royal army and serving to protect the love of her life and her mother. Catherine and Nahari remained in command, seizing control over the entire region of Maya, daring anyone who challenged their authority. Katara and Maybelline remained as ladies over the village. However, the thought remained in Nahari's mind that he would have to return to Ikaru to save his people from his brother's rule one day. While he stayed in Maya, rebuilding its infrastructure, built universities, and brought the water region to the forefront of Gaia, Jin's warrior mentality led to campaigns and battles the Empire could not hope to win. Without an abundance of aetherbenders, the Empire began taking losses and casualties abroad in Eridu due to the forming regulatory regime. While Nahari brought Maya to its glory day, his brother Jin brought Ekru to ruin. The Emperor was sick, and with only one son in Ekru, he had little choice but to give the leadership of his life's work to Jin. Nahari remained in Maya with his family. Tortured over the news, he stayed in Maya, plotting his return to leave his wives and children and reclaim his father's land. "My king, how are you feeling?" Teresa had grown older over the years, though her beauty did not fade. Her hair turned to gray. Nahari was sitting in the courtyard watching his children playing together. Teresa joined his side, refilling his glass lemonade from the ice-cold pitcher by his side. Nahari was in the prime of his life, watching his beautiful wife, twice his age, serve him faithfully. "I'm concerned with my homeland, but this should not ruin your day. My father's fallen ill. My brother's taking control over the Empire, and he brings it further to ruin every day. My father did not build Ekru by pitting young boys in senseless wars against veteran troops. He was cunning, negotiated, and focused on cutting the head off the dragon." Teresa didn't take her husband's concerns lightly, wishing to be a better queen for the younger man than her past husband. Teresa kissed his cheek, whispering into his ear, "If you were to leave for a while, I would tell no one where you had gone." Nahari's eyes grew purple, clenching his fist as he nodded, understanding how well Teresa had learned him over these years. It was rare he wasted idle words. All Nahari wanted was permission to leave and reclaim what was rightfully his without guilt or leaving his family. As he kissed Teresa on the lips, thanking her for her approval, Nahari gathered his children, kissing them each on the forehead before drinking his lemonade. "Thank you for everything, my love. I will be back to you sooner than you imagine." Nahari was gone into thin air, leaving Teresa alone. Teresa smiled, pouring herself a glass of lemonade from his cup, and watching her grandchildren playing around. She knew one day they would all take after her father's self-determination. Teresa's stomach was swollen with child.